Qingpu Academy was bustling today. The usually deserted Great Academy was not only crowded with visitors, but even some important figures on Elon Star had personally arrived. The 10th Sanseed venue was packed. Besides the Academy's own students, many journalists who had rushed over were also present. Everyone's gaze and camera flashes were focused on the podium, aiming at the ponytailed girl who was presenting her work. The girl was named Xiao Zhuer. She was introducing a first-order strength star rune she had created, a powerful piece of equipment that once installed would permanently increase a star warrior's strength by 30. As the first star rune master in the 100-year history of Qingpu Academy, she, in her creation, not only brought immense glory to the Academy, but also sparked competition among various forces. As her presentation was about to conclude, some big shots in the temporary VIP seating could no longer contain themselves, and had already sent people out ready to take the young star rune master away for a heart-to-heart talk at any moment. The students below all wore expressions of excitement. They held their silence, not daring to break Xiao Zhuer's presentation. Yet they were ready to cheer at any moment, wanting to give their idol a loud ovation. Among the crowd, a young man seemed out of place. He kept his head lowered, never once looking at the big screen. His mind was completely elsewhere, not focused on the equipment that could dramatically boost a Star Warrior's power. The young man's name was Qin Xiao. He paid no attention to the star rune, not because he didn't understand its value, but because he was troubled by his own experience. An hour ago, Qin Xiao had awakened in the venue. He clearly remembered that moments before he had been fighting on a battlefield, his brain pierced by a powerful 3-segment insect. Then everything went dark, and when he opened his eyes again, he was in this venue. After a moment of confusion, Qin Xiao realized he had been reborn, returned to the graduation ceremony of 10 years ago. This graduation ceremony had left a deep impression on his memory. In the coming decade, Xiao Zhuer, the most dazzling star rune master of the Star Extreme Empire, would begin her performance right here. He remembered all of this, and he remembered even more. At 18 again, Qin Xiao was both shocked and excited. Shocked by his rebirth and exhilarated by the life that lay ahead. Since I've been given another life, I'll live it differently. Qin Xiao clenched his fists and couldn't help but smile. What are you grinning about? What good news did you get? A large hand suddenly landed on Qin Xiao's shoulder, startling him out of his self-contained world. The one who called out was his friend Haishan. True to his name, Haishan was a massive figure too. 1 meter tall and weighing 300 jin. Qin Xiao rubbed his aching shoulder, but his face was full of smiles. Looking at his adolescent friend, the joy was overwhelming. Don't go for extra training tonight. He'll treat you to a feast at Imperial Star Tower, Qin Xiao said with a smile. Forget it. If you have money, you might as well lend it to me, so I can see if I can afford a strength star rune. Haishan gazed longingly at the strength star rune on the big screen, then smiled bitterly and shook his head. I'm just daydreaming. People like us, when will we ever be able to afford such high-class stuff? Qin Xiao patted Haishan's arm. Don't worry. Once I recover a bit, it'll make you a strength star rune. The one she made isn't good enough. Qin Xiao had every reason to say this. Before his rebirth, he too had been a star rune master. Although not as famous as Xiao Zhuer of the same era, he didn't think he was much inferior in skill. As long as he recovered some strength and found a way to obtain a few resources, creating a strength star rune would not be. As for Qin Xiao's confidence, Haishan only took it as nonsense. If you can make a strength star rune, he'll stand on my head and eat shit for you to see, he said grumpily. No need, no need. Don't be so harsh on yourself. Just stand on your head and eat a meal. That's good enough. Qin Xiao replied with a cheeky grin. The horseplay between the two friends drew angry stares from those around them. Many glared viciously at Qin Xiao because his earlier remark, the one she made isn't good enough, had shattered their composure. Well, look at our classmate Qin, a hidden star rune master, even looking down on senior Xiao's work. A male student spoke sarcastically. He was Lu Cheng, the leader of Xiao Zhuer's fan club. In his eyes, Qin Xiao was nothing but a clown seeking attention. A useless guy who can't even forge a star, and he wants to lecture a star rune master on making runes. Who do you think you are? Another boy chimed in. The people around burst into laughter, openly mocking Qin Xiao's audacity. Haishan's face turned blue. He pointed at Lu Cheng and said, neither of you leave. When this is over, I'll have a nice chat with you. Oh, I'm so scared. Should I commit suicide to apologize right now? Lu Cheng dramatically patted his chest, his face full of disdain. Come on, let's fight right now. Unable to bear it any longer, Haishan rolled up his sleeves, ready to throw a punch. The commotion quickly drew more attention, and in the sudden silence, more people turned to look their way. Only then did Qin Xiao and the others realize that Xiao Zhuer's presentation had completely ended. She was about to start the QA session when the shouting broke out. The bald principal who had just stepped onto the podium looked at the area with murderous eyes. Forced to smile with all the reporters present, he asked, "Are there any questions, students?" The principal's voice, laced with suppressed anger, came through the venue's speakers. The two boys who had been sarcastic earlier instantly turned pale with fright. At the critical moment, Lu Cheng pointed at Qin Xiao and said, "Principal, it was Qin Xiao who said Senior Xiao's strength star rune was no good." He said he could make a better one with his eyes closed. That's a lie. When did Qin Xiao ever say? Haishin couldn't stand the blatant fabrication. Despite the public setting, he still wanted to throw a punch, and Qin Xiao could barely hold him back. Enough. The principal could no longer contain himself. Realizing his outburst, he forced a pleasant expression and beckoned. That student named Qin Xiao, since you have something to say, come up and share your thoughts. Suddenly Qin Xiao became the center of attention. Some reporters unaware of the situation thought Qingpu Academy was truly hiding talents, and a few even ran directly in front of him ready for an impromptu interview. Student Qin Xiao, please tell us what you discovered. Are you also a Star Rune Master student? The more serious the reporters became, the harder it was for the surrounding students to hold back their laughter. Lu Cheng looked at Qin Xiao with a triumphant smirk and taunted, go on, say it. The reporter's earnestness contrasted sharply with the classmates' ridicule. Taking it all in, Qin Xiao couldn't help but laugh. He hadn't encountered such a situation in a long time. Before his rebirth, he had grown accustomed to dealing with all kinds of scheming and deceit. This little scene felt refreshingly novel. All right, I'll go and have my say. Qin Xiao pushed through the crowd and strode toward the podium. No one expected him to actually dare to go up, not even the bald principal who had originally called him out. The clearest-headed person on the stage was Xiao Zhuer herself. Watching Qin Xiao approach, she asked seriously, is there really a problem with this strength star rune? Since he was already here, Qin Xiao decided not to hold back. He pointed at the big screen and began to speak. This strength star rune uses the waste earth alien metal as the core material, and you've added 2 gene anomaly chains to achieve a superclass strength boost. I must say your technique is indeed excellent. However, although this material can better guide a Star Warrior's genes towards strength evolution, it will cause big problems under special environments. For example, in supergravity space, a Star Warrior's combat consumption increases and injury risk rises due to the presence of this strength star rune. Over time, it could even trigger genetic mutation, and it would most likely be a mutation in a harmful direction. You can run some comparison tests after you go back. Under gravity, at least 3 times normal, the test components should start to collapse from within after about 100 test time units. After concisely stating the flaw of the star rune, Qin Xiao smiled politely at Xiao Zhu, then turned and walked away. He had not used the amplification equipment from start to finish. Only Xiao Zhu could hear his words. Although forced onto the stage, Qin Xiao didn't want to ruin the first product launch of Xiao Zhu's life. As a fellow Star Rune Master, he deeply understood how much harm his words would bring if spoken publicly. Qin Xiao spoke quickly and left even faster. When Xiao Zhu snapped back to reality, she found that Qin Xiao had already left the venue with a giant-like companion. Several male students kept taunting them from behind, but Qin Xiao didn't even turn around. Incompatible in supergravity space. Thinking about Qin Xiao's words, Xiao Zhu frowned deeply once again. The bald principal sidled up to her carefully, saying, "Don't be upset, student Xiao. After the presentation, I'll deal with that guy. Let's continue for now. There's a banquet later." Xiao Zhu cut off the principal's rambling, shook her head, and said, "Principal, let's end the presentation here. There's indeed a problem with my work. I need to go back and make adjustments." With that, Xiao Zhu also left briskly, just like Qin Xiao moments before. The bald principal's mind was in a mess. He never expected Xiao Zhu to leave so abruptly, nor could he believe that the reason for her departure was indeed a problem with her work. Worse still, when questioned by reporters, the bald principal accidentally blurted out the real reason for Xiao Zhu's departure, and there was no way to take it back. This remark caused a huge stir. Lu Cheng, who had been mocking Qin Xiao just moments ago, was instantly dumbfounded. He asked his companion, "What did the principal just say?" His companion replied, "Senior Xiao's strength star rune has a problem. She needs to go back and adjust it." "No way." Lu Cheng looked embarrassed, but quickly dismissed it contemptuously. "It's just a coincidence that Senior Xiao discovered the problem herself. That kid just got lucky and happened to be there at the right time." No one paid attention to Lu Cheng's self-comfort. At that moment, everyone wanted to know what had actually happened. In a temporary VIP room of the venue, a young man said to his subordinate, "Check out that guy named Qin Xiao. Find out what his background really is." After the graduation ceremony of Qingpu Academy, Xiao Zhu's name became widely known across Alien Star. At just 18 years old, this star pattern master was courted by major families. Even after she personally admitted that the power star pattern had defects, many families still wanted to pre-order exclusive agency rights for the pattern. However, whether facing lucrative recruitment offers or massive purchasing orders, Xiao Zhu turned them all down, pouring all her energy into fixing the defects of the star pattern. People all praised Xiao Zhu's attitude of continuous improvement on the path of star patterns, and even more admired her courage in admitting the flaws in her own work. As for Qin Xiao, the only person who stepped onto the stage and communicated with Xiao Zhu during the product launch, he was largely ignored by most. No one believed that an obscure student from a level academy could find flaws in the work of a genius star pattern master. Even the next day, while people were still buzzing about the event, Qin Xiao's name was no longer mentioned. An unknown nobody not worth discussing. The sun was high in the sky, afternoon sunlight crept slowly through the window into Qin Xiao's small room, casting light on his face. Qin Xiao slowly opened his eyes, looked down at his body, and shook his head slightly. My strength is too lacking. Many things are difficult to do. At present, Qin Xiao had only reached body tempering level 10. Strictly speaking, he didn't even count as a cultivator. At best, he was merely much stronger than an ordinary person. Body tempering, as the name implies, means forging the body through various body refining methods to lay a solid foundation for the true path of Star Warrior cultivation. After body tempering level 10, a star core gradually forms in the brain. Once the star core successfully condenses, it means truly embarking on the path of cultivation and becoming a Star Warrior. Star Warriors can use their own star cores to bond with various combat mechas, becoming mecha warriors and unleashing power far beyond ordinary humans. Some powerful Star Warriors can even control hero mecha for battle. Those giant machines ranging from tens to hundreds of meters tall possess breathtaking combat power. These things that were once so closely tied to Qin Xiao's life now seemed incredibly distant. After a day of mental adjustment, Qin Xiao had fully adapted to his reborn state. He didn't intend to reach for what was beyond his grasp, nor did he belittle himself. He just wanted to cultivate his star core as quickly as possible. Only with a star core can one manipulate star power and release it outward. Releasing star power is not only for combat, but also for mechanical manufacturing, alchemical fusion, and even unknown healing. Qin Xiao did not lack cultivation techniques. He lacked the resources needed for cultivation. Gene serums, mechanical tools, mecha equipment, all were major expenses. Gene serums, and mechanical tools in particular, were completely luxurious for low-level Star Warriors. Gene serums are used to modify body genes and are essential remedies for Star Warriors to quickly enhance their strength. Conventional gene serums have fixed enhancement directions, though as long as they are used on time and in proper amounts, the expected results can be achieved. However, what Qin Xiao wanted were not conventional gene serums, but gene serums with gene aberration capabilities. Gene aberration means mutation and enhancement. It refers to using controlled gene mutation methods to cause the genes of Star Warriors to mutate and strengthen in a specified direction, evolving special abilities. Gene aberration can be achieved in 3 ways. The first is random mutation, which depends entirely on luck, but such a lucky break rarely ever happens. The second method is to use gene aberration serums. This approach is relatively reliable, but requires solid pharmaceutical knowledge. The third method is to use star patterns. For example, Xiao Zhuer's power star pattern, which had 2 gene aberration chains implanted, could directly grant Star Warriors the ability to undergo aberration. Star patterns are essentially special gene fragments that can be perfectly implanted into the gene chain of a Star Warrior, thereby achieving strength enhancement. Because of this, star patterns are fervently pursued by Star Warriors, yet the vast majority of Star Warriors never use one in their lifetime, because they are expensive and rare. A qualified star pattern master must have knowledge of genetics, pharmacology, and mechanics. Some star pattern grandmasters are even proficient in combat theory and mecha theory. Only in this way can they create star patterns more suitable for Star Warriors. A good star pattern master must be a good pharmacist. Although Qin Xiao in his past life had not reached Xiao Zhuer's level, he could at least easily concoct gene aberration serums for quickly condensing a star core. But the problem was, where would the money come from? Looking at the procurement list he had made, Qin Xiao's face was full of bitter. 30 vials of gene serum, renting a clever mechanical workbench, renting a clever star energy furnace, and renting an anti-gravity light blade. Qin Xiao had already compressed his budget to the limit, but he still couldn't afford it. Now Qin Xiao's means of livelihood was working as a stevedore at the spaceport. Working hard all day, he could only earn a few tens of star diamonds. But the items on Qin Xiao's list cost thousands of star diamonds at a time. He was anxious, he was helpless. Maybe I should go rob someone. Qin Xiao began to think of bad ideas. This absurd thought quickly died stillborn. He wasn't arrogant enough to think that his current level of strength could match Star Warriors. Just as he was lost in wild thoughts, Qin Xiao suddenly heard commotion outside his door. Before he could investigate, the door was knocked. His classmate Qin Xiao at home, came a query from outside. Qin Xiao, puzzled, went to open the door. The moment the door opened, he was nearly blinded by countless camera flashes. Out of combat instinct, Qin Xiao thought he was under attack and subconsciously reached for a gun, but his hand found nothing at his waist, and he realized he was no longer on the battlefield. Outside the door stood a large number of reporters, various long and short lenses aimed at the doorway, snapping frantically. However, they were not photographing Qin Xiao, but Xiao Zhuer, who had been in the spotlight recently. Xiao Zhuer was wearing a black mechanical suit. The high-quality suit not only provided her with good protection, but also perfectly showcased her well-proportioned figure. She seemed completely unaware of her own beauty, always appearing plain and natural. Her face was etched with exhaustion, as if she had been undergoing intense labor for a long time. Your star power has become unstable. If you keep this up, you'll easily get hurt. Looking at the exhausted Xiao Zhuer, Qin Xiao blurted out. Xiao Zhuer was taken aback, then forced a smile. Thank you for your concern. Then she immediately said, last night I went back and tested according to your method, and the result. Before Xiao Zhuer could finish, Qin Xiao interrupted her. He stepped aside, smiled, and said, if you don't mind, why don't we come inside and talk? Alright, I was just about to show you. Xiao Zhuer decisively walked into Qin Xiao's room, completely disregarding the stunned reporters behind her. She didn't care at all about the speculation that might arise from walking into a single male's room under the public eye. After entering, she turned to look at Qin Xiao. Aren't you coming in? Qin Xiao gave a wry smile. The reporters outside had ignited a fire of gossip that could nearly burn the house down, but Xiao Zhuer remained oblivious. Thinking about what they were about to discuss, Qin Xiao finally closed the door tightly. In the next moment, a buzzing discussion rose from outside like thousands of flies hovering at the door. Qin Xiao walked to the table, stopped Xiao Zhuer, who was about to start a simulation, and said directly, no need to look. Your power star pattern will indeed cause gene mutation, and the worst kind. Beast mutation, completely uncontrollable. Xiao Zhuer stared at Qin Xiao with wide eyes. Her eyes were full of disbelief, but even more bewilderment. How do you know all this? My power star pattern had never been shown to anyone before yesterday. After a long while, Xiao Zhuer asked, there's nothing to be puzzled about. The basic principle of gene aberration is that it must be singular, pure, and controllable. Trying to implant two gene aberration chains will inevitably lead to these problems. But some powerful star warriors can absorb multiple gene aberration serums during cultivation and complete complex gene aberration training. You want to say that, don't you? Yes, that's exactly what I think. Xiao Zhuer nodded repeatedly and immediately asked, so what's wrong with my... The reason those experts can achieve complex aberration fusion is that they constantly adjust the direction of aberration. If you carefully break down their cultivation process, you'll find that those complex processes are actually the merging and integration of countless single aberration processes, not a messy forced fusion. Listening to Qin Xiao's words, Xiao Zhuer's bewildered eyes gradually cleared, and finally, she said excitedly, in other words, if I can make the two gene aberration chains complete aberration fusion in advance, and then implant them into the star pattern, I can avoid this problem. Yes. Qin Xiao nodded. Talking with intelligent people saved effort. Oh, Xiao Zhuer indeed got it with just a hint. After the problem was solved, Xiao Zhuer suddenly stood up, then bowed solemnly to Qin Xiao. Thank you, teacher, for your guidance. I have learned a lot. Qin Xiao was caught off guard by Xiao Zhuer's respectful bow, quickly stood up, and said, you're too polite. This is just normal academic exchange. Xiao Zhuer shook her head seriously and said earnestly, it's different. Without your guidance, this star pattern of mine might have harmed countless people. Qin Xiao was a bit surprised, not expecting the young genius to carry such a strong scholarly demeanor. After thanking him sincerely, Xiao Zhuer quickly furrowed her brow. But how can we achieve the fusion of gene aberration chains outside the star pattern? Also, the arid wood metamorphic metal really isn't suitable in supergravity spaces, so which metamorphic metal should be chosen as the main material? Seeing that things had reached this point, Qin Xiao said straightforwardly, if you need, I can help you figure out a solution. Really? Xiao Zhuer looked up sharply. Of course it's real. Qin Xiao nodded and smirked. It depends on whether you want me or my skills. Huh. Xiao Zhuer was stunned for a moment, then said, I want both. Xiao Zhuer's ferocity caught Qin Xiao off guard. He let out a dry laugh and said, don't be like that. I'm really only selling my skills, not my body. Why won't you sell your body? Xiao Zhuer asked earnestly, showing no hint of jest. Seeing that Qin Xiao remained silent, she picked up the procurement list from the table and said, if I'm not mistaken, you must be in dire need of money. She spoke naturally, without condescending arrogance or ridicule. I won't restrict your freedom for long. But crafting star patterns requires constant fine-tuning. If you only give me a general idea, it won't help much. I need your full cooperation. She put down the list and declared dominantly, if you agree to work for me, I'll buy you 300 doses of the reagents on that list and purchase these devices outright for you to use, no renting. The moment he heard Xiao Zhuer's offer, Qin Xiao, who had just been thinking, who do you think you are, immediately changed his tune. Full cooperation. That was nothing. As long as the price was right, even accompanying her for meals and drinks was acceptable. Making money was nothing to be ashamed of. Even so, Qin Xiao ultimately agreed to work for Xiao Zhuer at a rate of 1,000 star diamonds per day. It was a very reasonable price, equivalent to the income of a top-tier star pattern assistant, and more than sufficient given Qin Xiao's abilities. As for the initial offer Xiao Zhuer had made while he was tempted, he had no intention of accepting it. Many knew Xiao Zhuer was a prodigy who had emerged from nowhere, but few understood her true background. Xiao Zhuer was born into the Bai family, one of the 5 pillars of the Star Extreme Empire. Her mother was the eldest daughter of the current Bai family head. Despite being of a different surname, Xiao Zhuer held considerable status within the Bai family. If not for her monstrously talented brother, her own genius in star patterns would have made her the leading figure of her generation among the Bai family. Qin Xiao knew the rules of dealing with children from such powerful families. You could earn their money, even make a fortune from them, but you must never deceive them. Xiao Zhuer was still a young girl obsessed with star patterns with a vague understanding of resources. She dared to offer freely, but Qin Xiao didn't dare to accept recklessly. As they left, the reporters outside once again aimed their lenses at them. This time Qin Xiao also appeared in many shots. After all, having attracted Xiao Zhuer's personal visit, spent time alone with her in a room, and then left together, Qin Xiao's identity sparked even more speculation. Most of it, however, was trivial gossip. Xiao Zhuer's mechanical lab was located at Qingpu Academy. The lab had originally been a mere decoration only truly utilized after Xiao Zhuer joined. But upon entering the lab, Qin Xiao immediately understood that the only thing being utilized was the building itself. Inside, the lab was filled with top-tier equipment, grade mechanical benches, and stellar energy furnaces, third-generation environmental simulation testers, various models of anti-gravity light blades, and a gene reagent library with over 100 categories. Despite his mental preparation, Qin Xiao couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement at the sight before falling. If I could use this lab for a year, I should be able to recover to the level of a first-rank star pattern master. His reverie was abruptly cut short as he soberly realized that even if the lab were free, he couldn't afford to use it now. The maintenance and repair of the equipment alone was no small sum, not to mention the massive consumption of reagents and exotic metals during experiments. Gently tracing the almost artistic patterns on the mechanical bench, Qin Xiao let out a bitter laugh. Before his rebirth, he had fought desperately on the battlefield, saved countless important figures, and taken the blame for his superiors many times, all to earn a mechanical lab of his own. And that lab was barely on par with this one, perhaps even lacking in resource reserves. What he had fought to the death to obtain was merely another starting point. The bitterness on Qin Xiao's face deepened, but he quickly suppressed it. He hated being plagued by negative emotions. At least I have a second chance. A confident smile returned to Qin Xiao's face. He deftly turned on the environmental simulation tester and said to Xiao Zhuer, "Come on, let's start with a hypergravity test." Xiao Zhuer showed no surprise at Qin Xiao's familiarity with the equipment. She replied crisply, "All right, let's." As the various devices in the lab roared to life, the gossip reporters outside were driven away by a group of fierce star warriors. In the dean's building not far away, a young man listened to his subordinate's report and signaled for him to retreat. Then, looking at the bald dean opposite him, he said, "So this guy named Qin Xiao has always been ordinary, never showing any brilliance until yesterday." "Yes, Master Bai. Your men must have already confirmed it. That Qin Xiao has always behaved normally with nothing exceptional about him." The bald dean replied cautiously. The bald dean had no choice but to take the man before him seriously. He was the eldest son and grandson of the current Bai family, head already renowned for his military exploits on the empire's northern frontier at a young age. When people spoke of Bai Qi's name, they first thought of his title as the god of war, followed by his identity as the young master of the Bai family. Bai Qi's arrival made the bald dean extremely nervous. Having spent the first half of his life scheming within the academy system, he had little experience dealing with generals who led troops. Faced with Bai Qi, the bald dean had a belly full of flattery, but every time he saw the other's grim face, he swallowed his words. In his struggle, he suddenly heard Bai Qi murmur, "Could he be an evolver after a genetic mutation?" Yes, that's possible, very possible." The bald dean nodded repeatedly in agreement. Bai Qi let out a cold laugh. Even if he underwent a perfect genetic mutation and evolved new genes, at most it would strengthen his body. I've never heard of anyone learning star pattern techniques from evolution. The bald dean smiled awkwardly, not knowing what else to say. Bai Qi waved his hand, as if unwilling to discuss the matter further. He looked at the bald dean and said, "Dean Shin, you did well in thinking to bring in reporters to help my little sister gain fame. But too much is as bad as too little. It's better to keep things quiet from now on, don't you agree?" The bald dean dared not refuse, patting his chest to guarantee that no one would disturb Xiao Zhuer again. Seeing that Bai Qi had no further orders, the bald dean slowly took his leave. As soon as he stepped out of the dean's building, the vice dean rushed over. "Dean, the stewards from the Luzhou, Zhao, and Wang families are all waiting for you. They want to discuss recruiting Xiao Zhuer." "Them? Recruit Xiao Zhuer?" the bald dean ground out through clenched teeth. "Are they worthy?" "Dean, what did you say?" "Go tell them that from today onward they are not to disturb Xiao Zhuer nor contact her privately. If any further harassment occurs, don't blame me for being rude." The vice dean was dumbfounded, unsure what game the dean was playing. He probed, "Dean, are you dissatisfied with the previously agreed price?" "What price? What agreement?" "I Chen Xingjing am devoted to education and never use students for personal gain. Don't bother me with these trivial matters in the future." The bald dean declared with righteous indignation, then walked away with his hands behind his back. The vice dean stared blankly at the dean's retreating figure. After a long moment, he suddenly realized, no wonder he's the dean. The more critical the moment, the calmer he gets. If he drags it out for another 10 days or half a month, won't those families be rushing to raise the price? With his newfound insight, the vice dean imitated the gesture, walking slowly out of the school with his hands behind his back. The reporters were driven away and the stewards of the great families left helplessly. Qingpu Academy returned to its former tranquility. Only that special mechanical lab occasionally saw people coming and going, bringing a hint of life to the otherwise lifeless academy. For 3 whole days, except for Xiao Zhuer's assistant frequently entering and leaving to replenish materials and remove waste, Qin Xiao and Xiao Zhuer never stepped out. After another failed test, the atmosphere in the lab hit rock bottom. Xiao Zhuer slumped beside the mechanical bench, her face etched with exhaustion, her eyes even growing dull. But before long, she stood up again, picking up the anti-gravity light blade to continue working. Qin Xiao stood up, grabbed Xiao Zhuer's hands, and said in a deep voice, "No, you can't continue. Your star power is severely overdrawn. If this goes on, your star core will be damaged." Xiao Zhuer shook her head stubbornly. "I'm fine, I can hold on. We're so close to success." Qin Xiao lost his patience, snatched the light blade away, and snapped, "Close to success, my ass. Do you want to die?" His voice was loud and his attitude extremely harsh, momentarily startling Xiao Zhuer into speechlessness. "How dare you? Watch your mouth." Seeing Qin Xiao shouting at Xiao Zhuer, her assistant stepped forward. "Shut up!" Qin Xiao roared, turning to the assistant. "Are you brainless? Still trying to suck up at a time like this? She's about to drop dead. Remember, as a star pattern assistant, your most important duty is to ensure the star pattern master's health and safety. No matter how important a star pattern is, it's just a tool. Once a person dies, nothing else matters." Seeing the assistant still in a daze, Qin Xiao said irritably, "What are you standing there for? Go find a physician." "No, I'm fine." Xiao Zhuer tried to refuse, but before she could finish, she suddenly fainted. Only then did the assistant realize the gravity of the situation and rushed out. He soon returned with a physician who stabilized Xiao Zhuer's condition after treatment. Her stellar energy is severely depleted, and it has already damaged her star core. She needs a period of quiet recuperation. The physician left after giving serious instructions. Xiao Zhuer woke up. Upon hearing that she needed to rest, she looked helpless and asked Qin Xiao, "What do we do now?" Qin Xiao thought for a moment, stroked his chin, and said, "Let me take you somewhere fun to relax." Qin Xiao's fun place was the super temporal battlefield. It was not a real battlefield, but a highly realistic virtual battlefield. The super temporal battlefield could simulate thousands of battlefield environments and also highly replicate most of the current mainstream weapons. Young martial artists who wanted to quickly accumulate combat experience would basically choose to sharpen themselves in the super temporal battlefield. Many powerhouses before becoming famous had left remarkable achievements here. Even when many large families selected talents, they would also regard the achievements in the super temporal battlefield as an important evaluation criterion. Xiao Zhuer followed Qin Xiao into the super temporal battlefield and asked, "Since when did combat become entertainment?" She was very familiar with the super temporal battlefield because with its high degree of realism, fighting here was actually not easy. Qin Xiao smiled without speaking to him. This bloodless battlefield was a playground. It was not uncommon for many so-called combat experts who had walked out from here to instantly become novices when they entered a real battlefield and felt the threat of death. Qin Xiao called Haishan over. After hearing that Xiao Zhuer was covering all the expenses for today, Haishan immediately excitedly rubbed his hands together. The super temporal battlefield was not free to access. Cultivators of common origin like Haishan could only come here, sparingly indulging a few times, and then leaving. Arriving at the registration office, Qin Xiao selected the Capture the Flag battlefield mode, which was a popular mode in the super temporal battlefield. Capture the Flag was a melee combat mode. Every 3 people formed a team, with a total of 20 teams entering the battlefield from random positions. There was a flag platform in the center of the battlefield. All teams competed for the flag, and the team that successfully captured it would be the winner. In the preparation area, Qin Xiao said to Xiao Zhuer after entering the battlefield, "You stay close to me and observe Haishan's fighting style." Xiao Zhuer was taken aback. She had thought it was to observe Qin Xiao's fighting style. Qin Xiao chuckled and said, "My fighting style isn't representative. Just watch Haishan." As he spoke, the 20 combat teams were randomly teleported into the Capture the Flag battlefield. The battle in Capture the Flag was a mecha battle. After entering the battlefield, Qin Xiao and his 2 companions automatically wore combat mechas. They wore V2 type combat mechas, which were the most mainstream standard humanoid mechas with strong offensive capabilities and high flexibility, but relatively weak defense. The V2 mecha was 5 meters tall, pitch black, all over. Wearing the mechas, Qin Xiao and the other 2 turned into cold battle giants. "Ah, the feeling of wearing a mecha is still so satisfying." Haishan's exclamation came through the communicator. Qin Xiao replied, "Cut the crap, hurry up and find weapons." At the moment of entering the battlefield, they only had combat mechas. All handheld weapons and mounted weapons needed to be found within the battlefield. This battlefield was a jungle battlefield where trees would serve as the best cover and skirmishes could break out at any time. In the first tree hollow they checked there was an equipment box, but unfortunately it contained only melee weapons. Looking at the 3 identical magnetic gathering blades, Haishan said in frustration, "Why isn't it a SATA machine?" The magnetic gathering blade is not bad either. It's a high-frequency vibrating magnetic energy blade with extremely strong armor-piercing ability. It can easily cut through V2 mechas in close combat. Xiao Zhuer explained while holding the magnetic gathering blade. The problem is we need to get close enough to cut. While Haishan was still complaining, Qin Xiao suddenly snatched the magnetic gathering blade from his hand and charged straight ahead. Watching Qin Xiao charge out, Haishan and Xiao Zhuer then noticed that there were enemies in the distance. Qin Xiao unfolded the 2 magnetic gathering blades. After unfolding, the blades were only half a meter long. Relative to the mecha, the magnetic gathering blade was essentially a dagger-type weapon. The 3 opponents saw Qin Xiao rushing at them and immediately spread out, forming a standard defensive formation in an instant. Their reactions were undeniably fast, and their combat formation was well maintained. Unfortunately, only 2 of them had weapons, and both were also melee weapons. Thus, the seemingly perfect defensive formation instead revealed a huge flaw. Rigid Academy students Qin Xiao chuckled to himself, charging toward the unarmed one. He struck out with his right hand, executing a standard combat skill, Heavy Strike. Heavy Strike was not suited for dagger-type blades, as sure enough the strike missed completely, and Qin Xiao seemed to have overexerted, causing his mecha to lose balance. The other 2 seized the opportunity to attack, striking from left and right simultaneously, intending to kill. At that moment, just as he was about to fall, Qin Xiao suddenly crouched down, held the blades in reverse grip with both hands, and traced 2 eerie arcs that stabbed into the heads of the 2 mechas. Even though everyone was watching him, no one could see how he had delivered those strikes in that instant. That was not the end. Still crouching, Qin Xiao then executed the combat skill Savage Charge, directly ramming the stunned opponent in front of him and sending him flying. He turned back, picked up a blade that had fallen on the ground, rushed over, and decapitated the one who had been knocked away. When Qin Xiao stood up again, the 2 mechas whose heads had been pierced finally gave way and exploded. Everything happened too fast. By the time Haishan and Xiao Zhuer ran over, the battle was already over. Looking at the mess on the ground, Haishan asked in astonishment, "How did you do that, kid? How many combat skills have you secretly practiced that I don't know about?" "Nothing, I just used the time others spend drinking coffee to drink beer," Qin Xiao casually fabricated. "What do you mean? Can drinking alcohol improve combat power?" Haishan obviously hadn't realized Qin Xiao was joking and continued to ask seriously. Qin Xiao was completely hopeless about Haishan's intelligence. He stopped paying attention to Haishan and led the team onward. What Qin Xiao didn't know was that this insignificant skirmish in his eyes had caused quite a stir outside the battle. The team he had defeated was from Pohu Academy. Pohu Academy was the only a great academy on Island Planet, a true top-tier institution and cradle of talents. Qin Xiao had defeated the team, led by Yuji, a freshman star from Pohu Academy. UJI's team had already achieved 9 consecutive victories in the Capture the Flag battlefield. If they could achieve 10 consecutive victories, they would receive a huge reward. The 9-win streak UG team had become stars in the super temporal battlefield, and many gamblers had placed heavy bets on them. As a result, their 10th battle ended in defeat right at the very beginning, and a complete rout at that. The spectators were first shocked, then quickly turned to anger and doubt. The gamblers who had placed heavy bets unanimously believed that UJI's team had thrown the match, screwing them over badly. If not for the strong leadership from Pohu Academy, their rest area in the super temporal battlefield might have already been overrun. UJI's face twisted with fury, his eyes filled with hatred. This battle not only lost the huge reward, but also made his own heavy bet on himself a total loss. "Find out properly which damn brat dares to ruin my plans," Yuji said through gritted teeth. Bai Qi, as usual, sat in the VIP viewing seat watching Qin Xiao on the screen and asked his subordinate, "Xiao Ming, what do you think of this battle?" "Well, it's sort of routine operation," Xiao Ming replied after hesitating for a long time. "Routine operation?" Bai Qi shook his head, not quite agreeing with his subordinate's view. He continued, "His moves just now were fluid and seamless, seemingly ingrained in muscle memory. Ordinary mecha soldiers can hardly achieve this. Only warriors of general level, who have fought for many years, can be so natural." Xiao Ming hesitated for a moment, and then retorted it could just be combat talent. Bai Qi smiled and didn't discuss further with his subordinate. The reason he had this judgment about Qin Xiao was that the most important point was he discovered that Qin Xiao used killing techniques, not the common combat techniques taught in academies. Killing and combat seemed no different, but only those who had truly been on a battlefield knew the gap. Qin Xiao must have killed people, and many of them. Bai Qi took out Qin Xiao's profile again, and the more he read, the tighter his brow became. At the age of 6, Qin Xiao was transported to Island Planet on an orphan ship, and then was placed in Qingpu Academy, which had both welfare and educational functions, where he had grown up until now. For 12 years, he had never left Island Planet. His life trajectory was simply outrageous, either studying and cultivating in the academy or doing manual labor at the spaceport to earn money. According to the profile, Qin Xiao could not possibly have mastered the way of the star pattern, let alone have superb killing techniques. Qingpu Academy didn't teach these things at all, unless he had learned them before the age of 6. How is this possible? Bai Qi tossed the profile aside in frustration. What's wrong, General? Xiao Ming turned to look at Bai Qi. Nothing. Bai Qi pointed at the screen and asked how did he do later. Mentioning this, Xiao Ming suddenly became General, I have to say this kid is really something. His positioning on the battlefield is extremely precise. Every skirmish he manages to engage at the most uncomfortable spot for the enemy. If the position is unfavorable, he immediately withdraws, never lingering. What's even more incredible is that he seems proficient in all weapons. In 7 skirmishes, he used 7 different weapons and killed 13 enemies. He is also skilled in camouflage and setting traps. One team was directly eliminated by his traps. He can also. Bai Qi waved his hand, cutting off Xiao Ming, and asked, all right, look how excited you are. Next, are you going to say we should recruit him into our unit? Exactly. A talent like this should be in our unit. Keeping him in the lab is a pure waste. General, you're right. This kid is not one of those outwardly strong but inwardly weak academy types. He's practically an all-round warrior. I now even suspect he can pilot a Yuanli mecha and serve as a battlefield medic. General, we need to act fast. Xiao Ming rubbed his hands excitedly, looking like he had found a treasure. But Bai Qi, who always loved talent, surprisingly did not respond to his subordinate's urging. Qin Xiao's excellence was completely incomprehensible to him. Even if Qin Xiao were an evolved human who had undergone a full genetic optimal mutation, it couldn't explain why he had suddenly become so outstanding. No matter how much genes mutate and evolve, they cannot evolve knowledge and experience out of thin air. The more unclear the origin of such a person, the more Bai Qi dared not recruit him. Who knew if the other party was a bait thrown out by a hostile family? But letting such a talent slip away, Bai Qi truly couldn't bear it. While he was hesitating, Xiao Ming suddenly said, General, the capture the flag battle has begun. The flag-stealing battlefield had shrunk considerably, now spanning only about 1,000 meters in diameter. Such was the nature of the battlefield. As the conflict raged on, its boundaries would continually contract, forcing the remaining teams into a decisive confrontation. The flag platform was encircled by towering sequoias, each reaching 100 meters in height, with trunks over 10 meters thick. The trees were chaotically arranged, offering limited open sight lines and serving as the perfect cover. Concealed behind a giant sequoia, Qin Xiao gazed at the nearby flag platform and said to Haishan, "They'll seize the flag. You provide suppressive fire." Haishan hesitated before replying softly, "All right. I can fight too." Xiao Zhuer suddenly interjected, "Break. Not needed. Your task is to observe Haishan's combat performance." Qin Xiao flatly refused her request to join the battle. Xiao Zhuer wanted to argue, but seeing Qin Xiao already charging forward, she swallowed her words. Throughout the fight, she hadn't fired a single shot. Every time she tried to act, Qin Xiao rejected her with the same excuse: observe Haishan's combat performance. Xiao Zhuer understood that Qin Xiao's arrangement had its purpose, and she had indeed been observing intently. Yet in her view, Haishan's combat style held nothing remarkable. It was clear that Haishan possessed a solid combat foundation and commendable skill with ranged weapons. The problem was his fighting method lacked any standout features. Haishan was an excellent mecha warrior, but that was all, just a warrior. As the battle deepened, his shooting accuracy and movement speed notably declined. This was a common issue among low-rank star warriors. Although mechas had their own energy systems, piloting them still consumed the star warrior's own star power. When the battle grew too intense, a low-rank star warrior's star power would quickly deplete. Clearly, Haishan's star power was nearly drained, explaining his hesitation when Qin Xiao requested fire support. As expected, Qin Xiao encountered trouble the moment he charged out. Haishan's suppressive fire was fierce, but his diminished accuracy forced Qin Xiao back. Haishan's frustrated voice crackled through the communicator. "Qin Xiao, I'm done for. Go take them all out. Hold on, try once more." Qin Xiao encouraged. Before Haishan could respond, Xiao Zhuer couldn't help but say, "Enough. You could finish this alone. Why make him suffer?" Xiao Zhuer's sudden outburst caught both Qin Xiao and Haishan off guard. But as they hesitated, she shifted her tone. "Or let me replace Haishan and cover for you." Even through their mechas, Qin Xiao and Haishan could almost see the mischievous grin on Xiao Zhuer's face. "No, Haishan must do this. Your task is to observe his combat state," Qin Xiao said, realizing she wasn't truly angry. Qin Xiao charged out again, and Haishan immediately laid down suppressive fire. But then an accident occurred. As Haishan emerged from behind the giant sequoia, a star energy cannon shot struck him squarely, piercing through his V2 mecha. "Damn it!" Haishan cursed under his breath, and the next moment he was teleported out of the battlefield. "This?" Xiao Zhuer was stunned, then asked instinctively, "Do I still need to observe?" Qin Xiao didn't answer. Bereft of Haishan's cover, he abandoned his charge toward the flag platform and instead rushed at the opposing team. Amid the dense forest, Qin Xiao moved like a phantom. His footwork was peculiar. Each step planted him steadily and precisely behind a giant sequoia. The three enemy mecha warriors couldn't track his movements. Despite their frantic gunfire, none of their shots touched him. After a few bounds, Qin Xiao closed in on one warrior and struck swiftly with his blade. A flash of saber light. The warrior's arms were severed in a single stroke. Having scored a hit, Qin Xiao's mecha performed two bizarre backward leaps, barely dodging a star energy cannon blast from behind. The next moment, he reappeared like a wraith behind the warrior who had fired. Crossing his blades, Qin Xiao carved an elegant cross of light, slicing the enemy mecha into 4 pieces. As the mecha exploded, a serpent-shaped star energy cannon rose from Qin Xiao's shoulder. Amid the blazing fire, 3 cannonballs streaked forth, instantly killing the last warrior who had been aiming at him. From Haishan's mecha being destroyed to Qin Xiao killing 3 enemies, less than 20 seconds had passed. The flag-stealing battle, expected to be grueling, ended as swiftly as slicing vegetables. Victory horns sounded across the battlefield, but outside an eerie silence reigned. Though Qin Xiao's team had already demonstrated formidable battlefield control, this final clash revealed something far more extraordinary to the spectators. Qin Xiao's strength was leagues beyond his opponents. Some even suspected he could have won the entire battle. In the VIP seats, Xiaoming couldn't help but applaud. Brilliant. A stunning performance. Nebula step, lightning slash cross slash instant weapon deployment. Just how many tricks does this kid have? How about I go talk to him now? Xiaoming, unable to suppress his desire to recruit, asked tentatively. Bai Qi's expression remained impassive, but his heart wavered. Ultimately, he shook his head. Let him finish helping my sister first. Outside the VIP area, a crowd surged toward the preparation zone's entrance, all eager to speak with Qin Xiao. Yu Ji and his men also blocked the door, intent on confronting him. But they were all disappointed. After the battle, Qin Xiao led Xiao Zhuo and Haishan out through a hidden exit. He had no desire to court attention, and neither did Xiao Zhuo. Yu Ji's eyes burned red with fury as he snarled, "Just let me catch you." On the way back, Haishan was sullen. After a long silence, he muttered, "What a chance to make a name. And you just threw it away. It's nothing. Finn can wait. Fix your own flaws first," Qin Xiao scolded with a laugh. "What flaws? Didn't I fight well enough?" Haishan retorted, unconvinced. Though Haishan hadn't been the main attacker in this flag battle, as a gunner his performance was undeniably excellent. Even his elimination in the final fight was due to exhaustion. After all, they had endured 10 battles, but Xiao Zhuo instinctively defended him. Haishan did fine. It's just that you're too strong. See, Senior Xiao says I did well. Haishan's face lit up with joy. What started as a joke turned serious as Qin Xiao's expression darkened. He spun around to face Haishan. "You really think you fought well?" Then he turned to Xiao Zhuo, "And you really think he had no issues?" Both were baffled by Qin Xiao's attitude, unsure why he was angry after their decisive victory. Haishan spoke first. "Watch how you talk to Senior Xiao." Having grown up with Qin Xiao in poverty, Haishan wasn't being obsequious. He just feared Qin Xiao might offend her. But Xiao Zhuo shrugged nonchalantly. "It's fine. He always talks to me like this." Huh. Haishan was dumbfounded, then instinctively gave Qin Xiao a thumbs up. "Bro, you've got some guts." Realizing his slip, he quickly corrected himself. "Senior Xiao is just being gracious. Don't you get too cocky." Qin Xiao understood his friend's concern. He patted Haishan on the shoulder and said, "Relax. Xiao Zhuo isn't some spoiled brat. She's not that fragile." Soon the three returned to Xiao Zhuo's mecha workshop. Qin Xiao slapped Haishan out of his starry-eyed daze, stopping his undignified gawking. He then guided Xiao Zhuo to a seat and pulled over an electronic screen. Looking at her, he asked, "What do you think is the purpose of star patterns?" Xiao Zhuo looked puzzled, unsure why he would ask such a simple question. "Do you want me to start with the basics of star patterns?" When Qin Xiao shook his head, she replied, "The purpose of star patterns is to enhance a star warrior's strength." "Not strength, combat effectiveness," Qin Xiao corrected. "Is there a difference?" Xiao Zhuo asked, confused. "Yeah, what's the difference?" Haishan chimed in. "Shut up." Qin Xiao pointed at Haishan, then gestured to another chair. "Sit down. You need to hear this lesson too." Well, since when did you become a teacher?" Haishan muttered with a smirk. "Sit. What Qin Xiao says is useful. It's worth listening to," Xiao Zhuo said, pointing at the chair. Haishan sat down, bewildered by how obediently Xiao Zhuo followed Qin Xiao's lead. His brain short-circuited, and he blurted out, "You two are so in sync. It's throwing me off." At that, Qin Xiao remained unfazed, but Xiao Zhuo's expression turned slightly awkward. Realizing his big mouth had caused trouble again, Haishan stole a glance at Xiao Zhuo's faintly flushed cheeks. He wanted to smooth things over, but had no idea what to say. In the awkward silence, Xiao Zhuo suddenly spoke. "Actually, I can create a very interesting star pattern." "Senior is amazing. An interesting star pattern. Ha 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 ha." Haishan tried to lighten the mood with a dry laugh, then wisely shut up. "This star pattern can be implanted directly into a person's mouth. Whenever they open it to speak, the pattern explodes. It's not too powerful, At most it blows their mouth apart, Xiao Zhuer continued. Haishan scratched his head. That sounds like a bomb. Exactly. It's called the bomb star pattern. Xiao Zhuer nodded, then suddenly gritted her teeth at Haishan. Junior, how would you like to taste this pattern? The thick-head Haishan finally caught on. He fell silent, wishing he could sew his mouth shut. Qin Xiao tapped the electronic screen and said with a smile, all right, jokes aside, let's start the lesson. As everyone knows, the cultivation realms of Star Warriors are the Star Forging realm, the Star Linking realm, and the Star Shattering realm. Each major realm is further divided into 5 minor stages. A Star Warrior's cultivation progresses by advancing through each minor stage, thereby elevating their realm. The body tempering period before the Star Forging realm is purely about refining the physique to prepare for condensing a star core, so it does not count as cultivation. Once the star core is successfully condensed, one becomes a Star Warrior. The greatest distinction between a Star Warrior and an ordinary person lies in the ability to harness stellar energy in battle, what we commonly refer to as star power. A key indicator of a Star Warrior's strength is the density of star power stored within their star core. We use the star power consumed by executing a basic combat technique, the jab, as a unit of measurement. The star power expended for one jab equals 1 unit. Normally, a first-stage Star Forging realm Star Warrior's star core stores 100 units of star power, while a second-stage one stores 200 units. Upon reaching the 5th stage of the Star Forging realm, star power must increase from 500 units to 100 units before one has the chance to break through to the next realm, the Star Linking realm. Before the electronic screen, Qin Xiao earnestly lectured on the fundamentals of Star Warrior cultivation. After listening for quite a while, Haishan could no longer hold back and raised his hand, saying, Teacher Qin, even my grandmother knows all this. Qin Xiao took a deep breath, then smiled as he looked at Xiao Zhuer. That bomb star pattern you mentioned, can you make it now? Upon hearing this, Haishan quickly changed his tune. Oh my, what a coincidence. My grandmother just appeared in my dream and told me she doesn't know anymore. Xiao Zhuer, standing nearby, was amused by Haishan's exaggerated tone. Imitating Qin Xiao's manner, she said, shut up. Say one more word, and he'll make a bomb and blow you up right now. Whoa. Haishan covered his mouth and nodded frantically. Qin Xiao tapped the electronic screen and said, then let's skip the basics and focus on today's battle. In the time-space battlefield, all participants are uniformly set at 100 units of combat power, equivalent to the strength of a peak 5th stage Star Forging realm Star Warrior. This setup serves 2 purposes: first, to ensure fairness, and second, to test the participants' mastery over the control of star power usage. Haishan, your problem lies in the poor precision of your star power control. Based on my observations, you could reduce the star power consumed during aiming by at least 30. The star power expended during rapid movement can be reduced by even 50. Furthermore, your conversion rate when using star power replenishment agents is too low. It can be improved by at least 10. Xiao Zhuer, listening attentively, nodded repeatedly and said earnestly, my observations align with yours, though the figures differ slightly. It might be difficult for him to reach that level in a short time. Unable to bear it any longer, Haishan raised his hand once more. This time, he had learned his lesson and only spoke after receiving dual approval from Qin Xiao and Xiao Zhuer. Bro, insist it's easy for you to say. I know my star power consumption is high, but the key question is, how do I not to mention that I don't even have a cultivation technique for this. Even if I did, wouldn't this ability require years of gradual improvement to see significant results? Qin Xiao nodded. Indeed, enhancing star power control precision does require time and accumulation. However, initial improvements don't take that long. With the right methods, you can achieve the level I mentioned in about a month. After a brief moment of shock, Xiao Zhuer felt her palm becoming damp. She then realized that her right hand had instinctively rested on the back of Haishan's head, where looking up, she saw Zhou Sheng still wearing a wicked grin, casually weighing the knife in his hand, as if he had just— Xiao Zhuer's pupils dilated instantly. After pondering for a long while, she shook her head. I've never heard of such a star pattern existing. Indeed, it doesn't exist now. Qin Xiao nodded. Then why are you talking nonsense? Haishan blurted out reflexively. But I can create it, Qin Xiao added. Teacher Qin, I apologize for my earlier attitude. Haishan immediately softened. A true master of changing faces. Xiao Zhuer was not like Haishan, as she clearly understood that the star pattern Qin Xiao mentioned absolutely did not exist. To create a brand new star pattern from scratch, or even a new type of star pattern, required far more than just clever ideas or novel concepts. Just as Xiao Zhuer was filled with doubt, Qin Xiao spoke again. Let's return to the initial topic. Are strength and combat capability the same thing? Haishan thought for a moment and volunteered. Do you mean that strength refers to a Star Warrior's personal cultivation, while combat capability refers to how effectively that cultivation can be utilized? Exactly, that's what I mean. Cultivation is merely one standard for measuring a Star Warrior's strength. It doesn't represent the whole picture. A Star Warrior who knows how to fight understands how to achieve maximum results with minimal expenditure. Precise control of star power is an essential skill for any excellent warrior. Having said this, Qin Xiao turned to Xiao Zhi and asked, in your opinion, which is more valuable, a star pattern that enhances precision control of star power or a super tier power star pattern? Undeniably, if such a star pattern truly existed, its value would be considerable, Xiao Zhi admitted candidly. Then she added firmly, but that doesn't diminish the value of the super tier power star pattern. Power amplification greatly enhances a star warrior's individual combat capability. But what about for a brigade? For a legion? Qin Xiao pressed on. This time Xiao Zhi was rendered speechless. She finally understood why Qin Xiao had insisted she observe Hai Shan's performance in the flag capture battlefield. Hai Shan was the quintessential representative of an ordinary mech warrior. They lacked advanced cultivation techniques and guidance from renowned masters, often relying on their own understanding on the path of cultivation. This extensive style of cultivation destined them to overlook details. Not to mention the ability to precisely control star power. Many low-level star warriors couldn't even fully master basic combat techniques. The fate of most low-level star warriors was to go to the battlefield and fight in formation. Xiao Zhi had never been to war, but she had a brother who was a war god, so her understanding of warfare was considerable. If a star pattern truly existed that could enhance low-level star warriors' ability to precisely control star power, even by just 10, it would be an unimaginable boost for the entire mech army. Are you selling your star pattern? Xiao Zhi asked somewhat excitedly. Don't misunderstand. I don't want to buy your design, I want to buy the finished products. They'll take as many as you have. I don't have any. Not a single finished product, Qin Xiao admitted honestly. Disappointment was evident on Xiao Zhi's face as she murmured, so it's just a concept of yours. It's not a concept. Qin Xiao waved his hand. I don't have finished products, but I have the design. And if you're willing to cooperate, I'll entrust the design to you for you to personally craft. Xiao Zhi's head shot up, staring at Qin Xiao with an expression of utter disbelief. Do you even know what you're? Xiao Zhi asked. Of course I do. It means you can also possess this design. And you dare to entrust it to me. Aren't you afraid I'll keep it for myself? No, I trust your character. We've only known each other for 3 days. That's enough. Xiao Zhi was momentarily at a loss for words. There were too many things about Qin Xiao that she couldn't fathom, and now she was even more bewildered. Qin Xiao didn't want to keep her in suspense. He continued, I want to use this design to make a deal with you. The moment she heard deal, Xiao Zhi perked up. How do you propose to trade? First, I need a batch of genetic agents. Hey, race the list. Second, I need to borrow your mechanical workshop for a while. Taking the list from Qin Xiao, Xiao Zhi noticed it was very similar to the one she had seen at his place before, except this one required higher grade genetic agents. These items are simple. I can prepare 10 sets for you, Xiao Zhi said with her usual generosity. Don't agree so quickly. I have other conditions. Qin Xiao raised his hand to stop her. Xiao Zhi put down the list. Go ahead. Third, the first finished star pattern produced must be given to me. Fourth, I want a 10 share of the sales dividends from this star pattern for the next 3 years. Fifth, if you can upgrade the star pattern's quality, I need the upgraded design. That's all. Just these conditions, Qin Xiao concluded with a nod. Listening to Qin Xiao's 5 conditions, Xiao Zhi remained confident. They don't sound like difficult conditions to meet. Don't agree so hastily. It's best you go back and discuss it with your family before making a decision, Qin Xiao. This was different from when Xiao Zhi had hired Qin Xiao for help. The interests involved in this matter were too vast for Xiao Zhi to manage on her own. Qin Xiao intended to conduct the cooperation openly and fairly, not wanting to take advantage of Xiao Zhi. Moreover, this was something Xiao Zhi couldn't decide on her own. All right, I'll listen to you, Xiao Zhi agreed compliantly. As for the super tier power star pattern, I'll continue to help you, but ITLL need to wait a few days. In the meantime, you should also take a good rest. It won't delay the progress, Qin Xiao added. All right, no problem, Xiao Zhi nodded readily. With everything settled, Qin Xiao suddenly became hesitant. There's also, one thing I'd like to ask for your help with. As soon as the words left her mouth, Xiao Zhi noticed the strange expression on Hai Shan's face. Sensing something was wrong, she pressed further. Yes. Caught red-handed, Qin Xiao admitted openly. I only need the items on the list, you don't need to prepare 10 sets. All right, as you wish. Xiao Zhi called in her assistant, gave some instructions, and then said to Qin Xiao, the items will be ready soon. Just focus on your work here. After making all the arrangements, Xiao Zhi prepared to leave with Hai Shan. She could sense that Qin Xiao was about to do something very private, and even having her good friend Hai Shan present would be inconvenient. As she reached the door, she suddenly turned around and asked, May I ask what you need all these things for? After leaving the mechanical room, Xiao Zhi appeared utterly distracted. He's not even a star warrior yet. He knows so much about star patterns, and yet he's not a star warrior. He possesses such advanced combat techniques, and yet he's not a star warrior. He can formulate genetic agents, and yet he's not a star warrior. At that moment, Xiao Zhi's mind was filled with nothing but questions. Before she left, her query had received an affirmative response from Qin Xiao. He intended to use genetic agents to attempt the condensation of a star core preparing to break through to the star forging realm. This meant that Qin Xiao was not yet a star warrior. He couldn't even harness star power. Even if Qin Xiao claimed to possess the strength of a star-shattering realm and was a super prodigy, Xiao Zhuer could have accepted such an outcome. Yet what she simply couldn't accept was that Qin Xiao was just an ordinary person. Xiao Zhuer felt her entire perception had been overturned, and she was utterly unable to comprehend this matter. In a daze, Xiao Zhuer arrived at the dean's building. "Student Xiao, is there anything I can help you with?" Dean Chen Qingzheng spotted her from a distance and hurried over to greet her. "Hello, Dean." Xiao Zhuer greeted politely, then said, "I want to see my brother." "Your brother?" Chen Qingzheng was taken aback, feigning ignorance. "What brother? I know he's here, Dean. You don't need to help him deceive me," Xiao Zhuer said softly, sidestepping Chen Qingzheng and attempting to walk inside. Chen Qingzheng was frantic, knowing Bai Qi had ordered him not to reveal his whereabouts, even to Xiao Zhuer. But to forcefully block Xiao Zhuer and offend this favored daughter of heaven would bring no good. Just as he was at a loss, Bai Qi took the initiative to come out, finally relieving Chen Qingzheng of his predicament. "Little bamboo." Bai Qi stood on the steps, his smile pure and devoid of any killing intent. "Big brother." Xiao Zhuer stepped forward and gently embraced Bai Qi. "Why so glum? Who bullied you?" Bai Qi asked. Though he was smiling, a glint of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. "No one bullied me." Xiao Zhuer shook her head, then said, "I encountered a monster, and I can't understand him." Though he was smiling, a glint of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. "No one bullied me." Xiao Zhuer shook her head, then said. Watching the Bai siblings enter the dean's building, Chen Qingzheng finally breathed a sigh of relief. "A monster? Is there anyone in the academy more monstrous than her? Could it be that guy named Qin Xiao? Huh, impossible. There are only wastes in the academy. Tisk tisk tsk. Were there any wastes? They're all top-quality cannon fodder. Recyclable garbage. A precise designation." Chen Qingzheng once again strolled away with his hands clasped behind his back. As for what the Bai siblings intended to discuss, he dared not inquire nor wish to know. In Xiao Zhuer's mechanical room, Qin Xiao was busy working before the mechanical station. The stellar energy furnace beside him hummed quietly, and he continuously added new genetic agents as the values on the furnace changed. 3 hours later, the stellar energy furnace ceased operation, and Qin Xiao extracted the synthesized agent from the solution layer. It was a solidified genetic agent, its overall hue an eerie red resembling a poison. But gazing at this raindrop-sized red agent, the furrow in Qin Xiao's brow finally relaxed. "Old friend, we meet again." Qin Xiao laughed, but his laughter carried a hint of madness. This synthesized agent was named the Annihilation Agent, a synthetic concept he had devised himself, and it was also the most suitable genetic agent for his cultivation. Qin Xiao cultivated a nameless technique, one that seemed etched into his mind since his earliest memories. Given that Qingpu Academy offered no advanced techniques for cultivation, Qin Xiao simply began training in this nameless technique, seemingly ingrained in his mind from his childhood. Before his rebirth, Qin Xiao had already realized the immense power of this technique within his mind. Its greatest strength lay in the fact that at critical junctures of advancement, special guidance could easily trigger genetic mutation. The so-called special methods referred to various genetic agents with inducing properties. Before his rebirth, Qin Xiao had undergone 3 significant genetic mutations, 2 of which were achieved through genetic agents during breakthroughs. However, Qin Xiao had not done so during his previous attempt to break through to the star forging realm, as he lacked his current memories and abilities. But given this second chance, Qin Xiao naturally would not miss any opportunity to trigger a genetic mutation. This annihilation agent was the finest gift he had prepared for himself. Qin Xiao knew his own body like the back of his hand. He knew exactly what kind of genetic agent would cause what kind of mutation in his body. He was perfectly clear about the final form of the mutation, the potential risks during mutation, the countermeasures, and even the areas that could be optimized. With the annihilation agent, Qin Xiao could complete his first genetic mutation simultaneously with his breakthrough to the star forging realm. If successful, his combat power would skyrocket, and he would mutate his first special ability. Temporarily calming his excitement, Qin Xiao set down the annihilation agent and began preparing another crucial component. Qin Xiao had asked Xiao Zhuer to prepare many stellar energy emitters. These were the most basic tubular emitters which could fire once an energy slot was installed. He modified the original 10cm emitters to 7.93 centimeters, the precise measurement he required. After modifying 7 emitters, he carefully took out a vial of liquid. This vial did not contain a genetic agent, but rather the blood of a phoenix. Phoenixes were among the most dangerous stellar beasts, possessing terrifying flame control abilities and incredibly tenacious vitality. A juvenile phoenix could easily annihilate a 100-man mecha warrior squadron. Countless mercenary corps hoping to capture a phoenix for great wealth had been utterly wiped out. For this reason, Qin Xiao handled the vial of phoenix blood with extreme care. Not only were these few drops crucial, but each drop of phoenix blood was worth 10,000 star diamonds. After filling the energy slots of the 7 emitters with phoenix blood and the annihilation agent, the preparations were finally complete. Gazing at the emitters and the annihilation agent, the smile gradually faded from Qin Xiao's face. "I hope there are no accidents," Qin Xiao said flatly, then stripped off his clothes. He reached out, grabbed the first emitter, and plunged it into his left leg without hesitation. A spray of blood burst forth, followed by a gush of blood. Then the phoenix blood in the emitter was triggered, and Qin Xiao's left leg instantly erupted in flames. He let out a muffled groan, enduring the searing pain as he thrust the second emitter into his right leg. The third, fourth, fifth, and sixth followed. As he inserted the emitters one after another, Qin Xiao's face turned deathly pale, and multiple flames ignited on his body. Trembling, he picked up the 7th emitter. He hesitated for a moment, but finally plunged it in. The 7th emitter was thrust between his eyebrows. An overwhelming wave of pain swept through his entire body, and Qin Xiao could no longer bear it, letting out agonized cries. He had completely transformed into a human torch. The excruciating pain shattered his defenses, and he curled up on the ground, rolling back and forth. After a long while, Qin Xiao forced himself to sit up again. With the last vestiges of his clarity, he began to circulate the nameless technique for cultivation. Time ticked by second by second. The flames on Qin Xiao's body alternately blazed and dimmed like a torch battered by a fierce wind. The cultivation process lasted a full 7 hours. By then, the flames on Qin Xiao's body had long been extinguished, and his body seemed to have been charred into charcoal. Surrounding him were over 1,000 star diamonds, their stellar energy completely drained. Suddenly, Qin Xiao's eyes snapped open, and it seemed as if flames were dancing within them. Qin Xiao leaped up with explosive force, jumping so high that he crashed directly into the ceiling. This collision shattered the charcoal-like skin covering his body. As the charcoal skin fell away, it revealed Qin Xiao's smooth body. He seemed reborn, like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. Not a single burn mark could be seen anywhere on his body, and even the 6 wounds from the emitters had vanished completely. Though Qin Xiao's body was still somewhat slender, it now emanated an irrepressible, violent aura. Even without fire, it seemed as if flames were still burning. It worked. Qin Xiao clenched his fists, unable to hide his excitement. It was a perfect breakthrough. He had successfully condensed a star core and become a star-forging realm star warrior. The cultivation process for a star warrior was a process of body modification, or more precisely, a process of genetic modification. The human body contains 7 gene chains which ordinary people cannot perceive. Only after becoming a star warrior and condensing a star core can one truly sense the state of these 7 gene chains. A star-forging realm star warrior was a cultivator who had activated the first gene chain. Star patterns could be inscribed on the activated gene chain, and all genetic mutation cultivation was directed at the activated gene chain. In Qin Xiao's spiritual world, the first gene chain had turned silver-white, signifying activation. The other 6 gene chains were not only gray, but also had indistinct patterns. These unactivated gene chains could not be used and could not store stellar energy. On Qin Xiao's first gene chain, there was a red light point, a sign of successful genetic mutation. He had risked being burned alive precisely to complete this genetic mutation. Qin Xiao walked to the mechanical station and casually grabbed an anti-gravity light blade. Though it was an ordinary tool blade, when he activated it, flames burst forth upon the blade. Qin Xiao looked at the flames dancing on the blade with satisfaction, finally able to use the flame blade again. Then he shook his head, dissatisfied. The control of the mutation ability isn't precise enough. He'll have to train hard from now on. With this thought, Qin Xiao refocused his mind, intending to thoroughly assess the results of his breakthrough. But when he saw the stellar energy stored in his star core, his face instantly filled with shock. What the hell just happened? 500 units of star power. A full 500 units of star power. When Qin Xiao confirmed his current combat strength, he stood frozen in place. A combat power of 500 units meant he had reached the 5th level of the star forging realm. This signified that during this breakthrough, by utilizing gene mutation, Qin Xiao had directly leaped across 4 minor realms, arriving at the 5th level of the star forging realm. Qin Xiao had only heard tales of such feats in the past, never imagining they would happen to him. The effect of flame mutation is this terrifying at lower realms. Qin Xiao exclaimed with excitement. The flame mutation he used was a method he had employed in his past life, when breaking through from the chain star realm to the star-shattering realm. Using it prematurely for this breakthrough into the star-forging realm was far more dangerous, but the final outcome was indeed gratifying. Through gene mutation, Qin Xiao gained the special ability of fire element affinity. With the power of fire element affinity, Qin Xiao would cultivate fire-based star arts and combat techniques much faster, and the power of his released fire star arts and combat techniques would also increase by 50. Element affinity was an exceedingly rare mutation ability. Many star warriors spent their entire lives in vain pursuit of such an ability. Qin Xiao had initially discovered his abnormally high tolerance for phoenix blood, which led him to boldly attempt creating a gene potion using it, and he succeeded. In his past life, he had earned considerable military merits through his formidable fire-based combat techniques, as the 50 power boost was truly terrifying. However, the side effect of the power boost was equally significant. Star power consumption increased by 100. Thus, Qin Xiao had to acquire the Focus Star rune as soon as possible. The Focus Star rune was the one he planned to trade with Xiao Zhuo. He couldn't forge it himself, yet only with her help could it be realized. I hope the Bai family recognizes the value of the Focus Star rune and starts cooperating soon. Qin Xiao closed his eyes again, slowly stabilizing his rapidly elevated realm. Outside the mechanical room, Xiao Zhuo had been waiting for a long time. Seeing the door still tightly shut, she simply sat cross-legged on the floor and began to meditate. But no matter how hard she tried, her mind refused to settle. If not for the fear of disturbing Qin Xiao's cultivation, she would have burst in right then to tell him they could cooperate. She vividly remembered her brother's reaction when she brought back news of the star rune. Bai Qi's response was secure the design of that star rune at all costs. In Xiao Zhuo's memory, her brother only used phrases like at all costs when matters of war were involved. She had thought her own evaluation of the star rune was high enough, but she never imagined she had still underestimated its value in her brother's eyes. Just as Xiao Zhuo grew impatient, the chaotic sound of footsteps in the distance jolted her awake. Hi Shan. Recognizing the face of the person rushing over, she stood up with a smile. Senior Xiao, great. Do you know where Qin Xiao is? Hai Shan asked, panic written on his face. He's in the mechanical room. You. Before Xiao Zhuo could finish, Hai Shan tried to charge in, but she reacted quickly and grabbed him. What are you doing? Qin Xiao is cultivating. You can't disturb him. Xiao Zhuo said indignantly. Silly me, I forgot he was here to break through to the star forging realm. Hai Shan smacked his forehead in frustration, blaming himself repeatedly. What happened? Xiao Zhuo asked patiently. Qin Xiao's house is on fire. On fire? Xiao Zhuo frowned and said instinctively, then put it out. As soon as the words left her mouth, Xiao Zhuo noticed the strange expression on Hai Shan's face. Sensing something was wrong, she pressed further. Did someone deliberately target Qin Xiao? Hai Shan hesitated, then finally revealed the truth. Qin Xiao's house had been set on fire maliciously, and the culprit was none other than Yu Ji, whom Qin Xiao had defeated in the hyperdimensional battlefield. After his 9-win streak was broken, Yu Ji had immediately wanted to spar with Qin Xiao in reality. But since Qin Xiao had left through a hidden exit, Yu Ji's rage found no outlet. Later, Yu Ji tracked down Qin Xiao's residence to settle the score, but Qin Xiao hadn't been home for 2 days. Believing Qin Xiao was simply avoiding the fight, Yu Ji set his house ablaze, hoping to force him out into the open. Listening to Hai Shan's explanation, Xiao Zhuo's face was a mask of confusion. It was just a virtual battle. Win or lose, is it really worth this? Hai Shan gave a bitter smile. Looking at her innocent expression, he knew this was something she would never understand. Setting aside whether Yu Ji had placed heavy bets on himself, the sheer disparity in their backgrounds made reason. They simply wanted to bully others. Bully Qin Xiao for lacking connections, bully him for being unable to fight back. But such words could never be spoken aloud, as admitting they were being bullied and dared not resist was truly humiliating. Come on, take me to see it. Xiao Zhuo patted Hai Shan on the shoulder. It's better not to trouble you, Senior Xiao. He'll just wait for Qin Xiao to come out. Hai Shan said awkwardly. Deep down, he didn't want Xiao Zhuo to witness their disgrace, especially Qin Xiao's. More importantly, he didn't believe she could solve this problem. But in the end, he couldn't refuse her, and reluctantly, Qin Xiao lived in the slums, the most common residential area on Errant Star. In the age of mechanical technology, productivity had soared, and even the slums lacked dilapidated houses. Compared to the gleaming steel towers of the main city, the standalone houses in the slums even exuded a certain leisurely charm. But today, the atmosphere around Qin Xiao's house was anything but leisurely. When they arrived at Qin Xiao's house, Xiao Zhuo saw only a still burning flame and several people constantly adding fuel outside the fire. Why isn't anyone putting out the fire? Xiao Zhuo asked, frowning. Hai Shan's bitter smile deepened. He thought to himself, Miss, you've never dealt with thugs before. If I could put it out, would I be running around frantically? The fire had spread quickly and fiercely, even affecting a few of Qin Xiao's neighbors. But seeing the attire of the people standing before the flames, the poor victims could only stare helplessly. These arsonists were not only students of Polu Academy, but also sons of prominent local families. Even without the backing of Polu Academy, the power of their families alone was enough to set a fire in the slums without consequence. Xiao Zhuo rarely encountered such situations, but that didn't mean she was unaware of their existence. When she realized the surrounding people dared not speak up, and even Hai Shan could only shake his head and sigh, she understood these arsonists were not to be trifled with. With this in mind, Xiao Zhuo suddenly looked at Hai Shan and asked, if Qin Xiao comes back, can he put out the fire? In truth, she meant to ask, what can Qin Xiao even do? Hai Shan gave a bitter smile and said, they just want to vent their anger on us. If Qin Xiao doesn't resist, and lets them teach him a lesson, maybe this will blow over. Doesn't resist. Xiao Zhuer caught a key phrase and quickly checked Haishan's body. Have they already taught you a lesson? As she spoke, she instinctively squeezed Haishan's arm. The mountain-like strong Haishan let out a pained cry, breaking into a cold sweat. Xiao Zhuer then realized Haishan was injured. Her squeeze had touched a broken bone. She slowly pulled back his sleeve, revealing a shocking sight. Not only was Haishan's arm broken, but there was also a gash like a blood groove on it. Xiao Zhuer's face darkened. Who did this? As she pressed for answers, an arrogant voice came from behind her. Kid, I told you to bring the man back, and you bring a woman. Trying to make us go easy on her. Young Master Zhou Qin Xiao has some business and can't come back yet. When he returns, I'll have him apologize to you immediately. Haishan quickly stepped in front of Xiao Zhuer, afraid these people would harm her. The approaching figure was a young man in his 20s, extremely tall and muscular, making even Haishan seem less imposing. His name was Zhou Sheng, a scion of the Zhou family, one of the 4 great families on Errant Star. Zhou Sheng was a friend of Yu Ji and had brought him here to avenge his grievance. It was he who had injured Haishan's arm and forced him to fetch Qin Xiao. Zhou Sheng's strength was not exceptional, only at the 5th level of the star forging realm. If he were 17 or 18, such strength would be acceptable. But still, being in the star forging realm in his 20s indicated that neither his talent nor his diligence was top tier. None of that mattered though. As the son of a powerful family, even if he were an ordinary person, Haishan would not dare to fight back or talk back. This girl is interesting. You've got some sense, kid. Get lost, you're not needed here. Zhou Sheng leered at Xiao Zhuer and reached out to shove Haishan aside for a better look at the beauty. But this time the previously compliant Haishan stood his ground. Young Master Zhou Senior Xiao has nothing to do with this. Haishan smiled ingratiatingly, blocking Zhou Sheng firmly. Senior Xiao, Qin Xiao should be done by now. Go get him, okay? Haishan said without turning around. It's fine, step aside. Let me see what this young Master Zhou wants. Xiao Zhuer said coldly, trying to pull Haishan behind her. Haishan suddenly turned to face Xiao Zhuer, his expression complex, angry yet pleading. He leaned in close, disregarding propriety, and whispered in her ear. Senior Xiao, maybe you're not afraid of him, but Qin Xiao and I can't afford to provoke them. Unless someone kills them all, even if this trouble subsides today, they'll have 100 ways to destroy us later. Please don't make this worse. Go get Qin Xiao and well apologize. It'll be fine. Listening to Haishan, Xiao Zhuer's expression grew complicated. She had never imagined that Qin Xiao and Haishan lived under such constant oppression. But before Xiao Zhuer could respond, she felt a gust of wind. The next moment, Haishan collapsed into her arms. Haishan, towering at 2 meters and 100 centimeters with a weight of over 300 Jin, suddenly crashed onto Xiao Zhuer, pinning her to the ground before she could even react. Xiao Zhuer was utterly bewildered. Oh, she never imagined that Haishan would be ambushed so suddenly, without even a chance to resist. After a brief moment of shock, Xiao Zhuer felt her palm becoming damp. She then realized that her right hand had instinctively rested on the back of Haishan's head, where a horrifying new gash had appeared. Zhou Sheng had actually slashed Haishan on the back of the head. Blood gushed out profusely, making the wound resemble a small spring. Only with great effort did Xiao Zhuer manage to staunch the bleeding. Looking up, she saw Zhou Sheng still wearing a wicked grin, casually weighing the knife in his hand, as if he had just cut down a blade of grass. Boy, you don't understand when spoken to politely, do you? Zhou Sheng said flatly. Then his expression shifted and he addressed Xiao Zhuer with feigned sincerity. My apologies for startling you, fair lady. A star warrior hurried over and whispered a few words in Zhou Sheng's ear. His expression flickered briefly before returning to normal, and he said with a smile, so you are Xiao Zhuer. My respects. Though his words conveyed respect, his face still bore a leering expression. Another man approached, equally robust, matching Zhou Sheng's stature. This man was Yu Ji, the instigator of today's events. Are you Xiao Zhuer, the prodigy who created the super-tier star rune? Yu Ji asked, his gaze less offensive than Zhou Sheng's, filled instead with curiosity. Yet whether it was Zhou Sheng's arrogance or Yu Ji's inquisitiveness, both seemed to completely ignore the severely injured Haishan, as if Haishan's life or death held no significance to them. Nor did they spare another glance at the collapsed house. The two stood before Xiao Zhuer, earnestly discussing the practical applications and true value of the super-tier star rune. Enough! Xiao Zhuer suddenly roared. The shout startled Yu Ji and Zhou Sheng, who quickly stepped back. After steadying himself, Zhou Sheng snapped. What are you shouting for, you bitch? I'll be more courteous to Miss Xiao, Yu Ji said, adopting a gentlemanly demeanor toward Zhou Sheng. Seeing her assistant rushing toward her in panic, Xiao Zhuer slowly stood up. When he arrived, she carefully instructed, find the best physician. He must be healed. Xiao. Classmate Xiao, let's leave together. The situation here is complicated. The assistant, deeply concerned for her safety, but unskilled in combat, urged her to accompany him. To him, saving Haishan made little difference, but if Xiao Zhuer were to encounter danger here, he would face severe. Xiao Zhuer shook her head, gritting her teeth. Take him to the physician now. Seeing her genuine anger, the assistant quickly took Haishan to leave. Wait. Xiao Zhuer called the assistant back, pausing to think before saying, tell Xiao Ming to come see me. This time Xiao Zhuer was truly furious. Oh, she's planning to call someone to deal with us. Zhou Sheng said with feigned alarm, then burst into arrogant laughter. If you enjoy bullying the weak, you'll find someone to play with you properly. Xiao Zhuer said coldly. What did she say? She wants to call over some sisters to keep us company. Zhou Sheng continued his nonsensical taunts, even reaching out to touch Xiao Zhuer's face. Sensing something amiss, Yu Ji quickly blocked Zhou Sheng's hand. We've had enough fun for today. Let's go back, he'll treat you to a drink. Yu Ji subtly turned Zhou Sheng around, guiding him away. Be careful, oh, I've heard that Xiao Zhuer comes from a good family too. Yu Ji whispered to Zhou Sheng. Zhou Sheng shook off his hand, sneering. Are you scared? Yu Ji frowned, deeply wanting to lash out, but not daring to resort to force. Although Yu Ji's family was powerful, it fell short compared to the Zhou family, one of the 4 great houses. Had he not become a standout among the new students at the Poku Academy, Yu Ji wouldn't even have qualified to be friends with Zhou Sheng. Zhou Sheng patted Yu Ji on the shoulder, grinning fiercely. Of course I know Xiao Zhuer has connections, but I just can't. My father even personally approached her to recruit her for our family, but he couldn't even get a meeting with Xiao Zhuer. I want to see what makes this bitch so special that she's got the whole planet of Alan stirred up. So do you want to recruit her? Yu Ji asked, puzzled. Of course I do, Zhou Sheng replied. I'm planning to give her a taste of our family's real power first, then soften her up with kindness and bring her into the fold. If possible, getting her into my bed would be even better, Zhou Sheng said with a lecherous chuckle. Listening to Zhou Sheng's explanation, Yu Ji's forehead bulged with veins. He simply couldn't fathom why Zhou Sheng would conceive such a foolish idea. Before Yu Ji could say anything more, a powerful aura suddenly surged. Instinctively, Yu Ji reached for the combat blade at his waist, turning toward the source of the aura. A man ran swiftly from a distance, clad in coarse cloth garments that, though old, were impeccably clean. The newcomer was Xiao Ming, who usually stayed by Bai Qi's side. Due to Bai Qi's orders, he dared not tail Xiao Zhuer. Had the assistant not sent word, he wouldn't have known she was in trouble. Someone dared to offend Bai Qi's sister. Xiao Ming thought this was a truly brutal way to commit suicide. He rushed to Xiao Zhuer's side and said respectfully, "Miss, your orders." As he spoke, Xiao Ming glanced over at Yu Ji and Zhou Sheng. Though a broad smile graced Xiao Ming's face the moment their eyes met, Yu Ji felt a chill run through his body, as if he had locked gazes with a ferocious beast. I want to be a bully. I want to pick on people, Xiao Zhuter said angrily. Xiao Ming withdrew his gaze, slightly taken aback. What? What do you mean, miss? They bullied my friend. Ooh, I want them to taste what it's like to be bullied, Xiao Zhuer declared, without reservation, pointing at Zhou Sheng to indicate the target. Haha, interesting, very interesting. So Star Rune Masters really do have different minds, even their dreams. Zhou Sheng was emboldened, even provocatively beckoning Xiao Ming with his finger. Yu Ji could already sense things spiraling out of control. The pressure Xiao Ming exerted was immense, a level of oppression not even his own teacher possessed. Let's go. We'll discuss this back home, Yu Ji urged, pulling Zhou Sheng away. Let go. Zhou Sheng shook off Yu Ji's hand in displeasure, pointing at his nose and cursing. Don't be ungrateful. Do you really think you're someone important? I was kind enough to help you vent your anger today, and you keep opposing me. If you don't want to be here, then get lost. As Zhou Sheng cursed at Yu Ji, Xiao Ming suddenly walked toward them. Yu Ji intended to warn him, but considering the situation, simply turned and left. Yet in that moment of turning, his eyes gleamed with coldness, a faint murderous intent stirring. Xiao Ming grabbed Zhou Sheng by the shoulder, and with seemingly no effort flung him away. Then Xiao Ming turned back, placed a foot on Zhou Sheng's head, and said in a low, measured tone, I suggest you don't move. If you do, he'll get nervous, and when I'm nervous, he'll crush your skull. Xiao Ming was not tall. Compared to Zhou Sheng, he even appeared somewhat slender. Yet the foot he planted on Zhou Sheng's head was as steady as Mount Tai. Zhou Sheng's body twisted like a pretzel, but his head remained pinned to the ground, immovable. Bastards! Are you all blind? Why aren't you saving me? Zhou Sheng roared in fury. The Zhou family star warriors had already surrounded Xiao Ming and Xiao Zhuer, but seeing Zhou Sheng pinned, none dared to act rashly. Because the impression Xiao Ming gave them was that if they made a move, he would indeed stomp down. Miss, how would you like to deal? Xiao Ming asked, looking at Xiao Zhuer. Break one of his legs. No, both. Xiao Zhuer said through gritted teeth. After issuing the harsh command, she quickly whispered, Brother Xiao, is this okay? Xiao Ming was amused by Xiao Zhuer's naive demeanor. This young lady, sheltered by her family since childhood, still didn't understand the weight the Bai family carried in the Star Extreme Empire. Of course it's fine, miss. You could even take his life if you wished, Xiao Ming said decisively. Good, then break his legs, so he knows the pain of having his limbs broken. Xiao Zhuer said fiercely. The thought of Haishan's uncertain fate shattered the last of her psychological. Sometimes meeting violence with violence is the best way to solve a problem. Xiao Ming activated his combat blade, measuring it back and forth, as if deciding where to strike. Zhou Sheng had long lost his earlier arrogance. He finally sensed the killing intent emanating from Xiao Ming. He realized this madman who had suddenly appeared would truly harm him. Brother, let's talk this over. There's no need for weapons, Zhou Sheng said, lowering his posture to seek peace. Hearing this, Xiao Zhuer retorted indignantly. What were you thinking when you slashed Hai Shan's head? At that moment, Xiao Zhuer was like an enraged little tiger. Her emotions were genuine, yet they always carried a childlike air. Xiao Ming knew that Xiao Zhuer had truly suffered a great injustice. He decided to stop tormenting Zhou Sheng's nerves and act. Just then a figure sprinted from afar, quickly arriving beside Xiao Ming and Xiao Zhuer. Looking at Zhou Sheng, who was trembling with fear, he said to Xiao Ming, "May I handle this person?" The one who hurried over was none other than Qin Xiao, who had just finished his cultivation session. His expression was exceedingly grim, and even as he spoke to Xiao Ming, his eyes remained fixed on Zhou Sheng. Xiao Ming saw the fierce killing intent in Qin Xiao's eyes and realized that if he handed the man over to Qin Xiao, Zhou Sheng might not even leave behind a complete corpse. Qin Xiao Hai Shan he. Qin Xiao waved his hand, interrupting Xiao Zhuer's words, and said, "Hai Shan's condition has stabilized. Thank you." He then looked at Xiao Ming and asked, "Can you hand him over to me?" "Brother Xiao, give him the man." Xiao Zhuer nodded at Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming sized up Qin Xiao and suddenly said, "I didn't expect your cultivation to be so low. I thought you'd at least be at the Shattered Star realm." Xiao Ming's words held no malice, and Qin Xiao forced a faint smile in response. The moment Xiao Ming lifted his foot, Zhou Sheng suddenly erupted, drawing his blade and slashing at Xiao Ming. But before Xiao Ming could act, Qin Xiao had already moved. Blade art moonfall slash, a silvery white moonlight flashed, and Zhou Sheng's full force strike was effortlessly neutralized by the moonfall slash. It didn't end there. The blade's light flashed again as Qin Xiao launched a second strike. Blade art lightning cut, this time blood appeared. Zhou Sheng's right hand, which he hadn't had time to withdraw, was severed cleanly at the wrist, splattering blood across his face. Only when the searing pain hit did Zhou Sheng let out a howl and collapse to the ground in agony. Yet it still wasn't over. Qin Xiao advanced swiftly, his right leg kicking out with a blur of afterimages. Leg art explosive kick crack. A crisp sound of bone breaking came from Zhou Sheng's leg. Qin Xiao's kick had shattered his shin bone. Zhou Sheng's screams grew even sharper and more piercing, the grievous injury forcing sounds of pain that seemed almost inhuman. Qin Xiao continued forward, activating the magnetic combat blade in his hand. A flame ignited on the blade. Xiao Ming, who had been watching the spectacle, noticed the flame, and a glint of sharp light flashed in his eyes. Gene mutation. Power of flame. Elemental affinity. Xiao Ming quickly grasped the crux of the matter, his face filled with astonishment. From the moment he acted until now, Qin Xiao hadn't uttered a single harsh word, but his strikes grew increasingly ruthless. The flame on the magnetic combat blade was not intense, but it was enough to take Zhou Sheng's life. Blade art, blazing fire. Qin Xiao delivered the final blow without mercy. Facing a Zhou Sheng who had lost all ability to resist this strike, could easily sever his head. At the critical moment, Yu Ji, who had been biding his time, made his move. Shield art, mighty bash. Yu Ji wielded a triangular battle shield and slammed it against Qin Xiao's blazing fire slash. After a straightforward clash with no fancy moves, Yu Ji stood firmly in place, shielding the now crippled Zhou Sheng. Qin Xiao couldn't withstand the ferocity of the shield bash and stumbled back over a dozen paces before barely regaining his balance. "Kid, you're asking for death," Yu Ji said, coldly staring at Qin Xiao. "Kill him. Kill him for me." Zhou Sheng roared through the pain, demanding Yu Ji avenge him. Yu Ji stood in front of Zhou Sheng, leaving Qin Xiao with no opportunity to strike. As a top newcomer at the Polu Academy, Yu Ji's strength had reached the 5th level of the Lianxing realm. His combat power was a full 5000 knots, 10 times that of Qin Xiao. Even with his elemental affinity, Qin Xiao couldn't gain any advantage over Yu Ji. After blocking Qin Xiao's lethal strike, Yu Ji didn't counterattack immediately, but prepared to protect Zhou Sheng and retreat. Among those present, the one who worried Yu Ji the most was Xiao Ming, who seemed to be just watching the show. Though they had many of Zhou's men on their side and appeared to have numerical superiority, if a real fight broke out, their forces might not even be enough for Xiao Ming to handle alone. Not to mention there was also a madman like Qin Xiao. Suddenly, a large group of star warriors marched over in the distance, appearing to be over 100 in number. Among the 100+ warriors, Yu Ji immediately spotted the leader. "Zhou Chun. Why is he here?" Yu Ji said in confusion. Zhou Chun was Zhou Sheng's older brother, but unlike Zhou Sheng's decadence, Zhou Chun was a true elite of the Zhou family. However, although Zhou Chun lacked the vices of a prodigal son, he was extremely protective of his own. The moment Yu Ji saw Zhou Chun appear, he realized that today's matter could not end so easily. As expected, Zhou Chun, who had arrived in a hurry with his men, immediately roared with bloodshot eyes upon seeing Zhou Sheng's tragic state. "Who did this?" "Who? Me." Qin Xiao showed no fear, even taking a step forward as he spoke. As he stepped forward, Xiao Ming, who had been watching with his arms crossed, finally moved as well. Zhou Chun, who had just been shouting, suddenly struck, driving a heart-shattering fist straight at Qin Xiao's chest. Qin Xiao seemed to have anticipated this. He had never truly regained his footing, and as Zhou Chun charged, he had already retreated, gripping his blade with both hands ready to execute a cross-slash. At that moment, Xiao Ming swept in like the wind, forcefully inserting himself between the two. He threw a simple punch seemingly without any battle technique, yet it sent Zhou Chun flying. "Little brother, you'd better not unleash that cross-slash. I get dizzy around blades," Xiao Ming joked, even as he landed his blow, addressing Qin Xiao behind him. Qin Xiao did not sheath his blade. The hatred in his heart was far from quenched, but the veiled warning in Xiao Ming's words made him cautious not to act rashly. He knew who Xiao Ming was. In fact, he was intimately familiar with Xiao Ming's modus operandi. This man, who appeared to act wildly, actually possessed an extremely meticulous mind. With him here, there was no way Qin Xiao could do as he pleased. Before his rebirth, Qin Xiao had served on the northern border of the Star Extreme Empire and knew a great deal about the first fierce general under the god of war, Bai Qi. Unfortunately, before his rebirth, Qin Xiao hadn't climbed high enough in the Northern Border Legion. He only knew of existences at the level of Bai Qi and Xiao Ming, but had never truly worked with them. Seeing Xiao Ming here, Qin Xiao had already guessed that the infamous sister Khan Bai Qi must also be on Elon Star and likely nearby. But looking at Zhou Sheng, who was still breathing, Qin Xiao's eyes still burned with killing intent. He had just learned from the machine room that his house had been set on fire, and when he rushed over, he encountered the severely injured Hai Shan. Hai Shan had multiple comminuted fractures. It was hard to imagine how he had managed to hold on and deliver them. Most critical was the blade wound on the back of his head. Although the Bai family's skilled physicians had saved his life before Qin Xiao left, he received the worst possible news. Even if Hai Shan survived this ordeal, it would be nearly impossible for him to cultivate again in the future. Zhou Sheng's blade had rendered him crippled. Hatred consumed Qin Xiao's mind. He walked forward, mechanically stopping beside Xiao Ming, and said. Xiao Ming glanced at Qin Xiao, and then said playfully, "All right, if you want to kill, go ahead. I won't spoil your fun, brother Xiao." Xiao Zhuer walked over, her face full of displeasure. "What kind of talk is that? Aren't Miss, a powerful dragon is no match for a local serpent. They are influential figures on Elon Star after all. It's indeed not easy to make a move," Xiao Ming said with a smile. "Didn't you just say I could have his life if I wanted?" Xiao Zhuer's eyes blazed with fury as she transformed into a little tigress once more. "The same act done by different people naturally yields different results," Xiao Ming explained unhurriedly. Qin Xiao caught Xiao Ming's implication once again and said without hesitation, "Regarding the cooperation on the Focus Star rune, I can give up my 10% share of the dividends. Is that condition satisfactory?" Since Bai Qi was very likely on Elon Star, Xiao Zhuer would certainly negotiate the cooperation directly with Bai Qi. As Bai Qi's adjutant, Xiao Ming would definitely be well informed about the details of the deal. Sure enough, upon hearing Qin Xiao's offer, Xiao Ming's eyes lit up. Unlike Xiao Zhuer, he knew exactly how much profit that 10% share represented in this cooperation. If things went smoothly, that 10% share could equip a mecha corps of 1,000 men, including logistical support. "The Focus Star rune you mentioned, is it the same one the young lady told us about?" Xiao Ming asked cautiously. "Yes." Qin Xiao nodded. Xiao Ming smiled, then quickly shook his head. "Just to vent your brother's anger, you'd give up so many benefits. Is it worth it?" "Some things can be calculated, others cannot," Qin Xiao said in a low voice. As he spoke, his gaze remained locked on Zhou Sheng. If looks could kill, Zhou Sheng would have died countless times. Xiao Zhuer was extremely displeased with Xiao Ming's profiteering. She grabbed his arm and said, "Brother Xiao, Qin Xiao is my friend. Does helping him require such terms?" "Miss, this is business. Matters like this aren't solved by just winning a fight," Xiao Ming explained with a right. As they argued, the situation around them had changed dramatically. Unnoticed, a large number of Zhou family star warriors had gathered. Having never suffered such a loss, the Zhou brothers were determined to kill Qin Xiao and his companions. If not for their inability to gauge Xiao Ming's true strength, forcing Zhou Chun to summon strong reinforcements from within the family, he would have already ordered an attack. Seeing the changes around them, Xiao Ming didn't dare to be overconfident and quickly relayed the situation to Bai Qi. On the other end of the communicator, Bai Qi was silent for a moment after hearing Xiao Ming's report before replying. "All right, help him resolve the trouble." With Bai Qi's approval, Xiao Ming knew he could finally go all out to settle the matter here. However, when he looked at Xiao Zhuer again, he found himself with another headache. Xiao Zhuer was so angry she was on the verge of tears. She glared at Xiao Ming and said pitifully, "I came here to help, but I've ended up being a robber." Even Qin Xiao, whose hatred was at its peak, couldn't help but force a bitter smile at Xiao Zhuer's aggrieved tears. He was about to say a few words of comfort when he suddenly sensed a powerful aura approaching. Qin Xiao knew that the Zhou family's strong reinforcements had arrived. At the thought, his gaze snapped back to Zhou Sheng, who was receiving treatment. The next moment, he made his move. Just as everyone was focused on the reinforcements of the Zhou family, Qin Xiao suddenly struck. Blade art flame stab. Qin Xiao approached Zhou Sheng like a specter and thrust his blade into the opponent's chest. Everyone was stunned. No one expected Qin Xiao to dare kill at such a moment. You seek death. Zhou Chen attacked with fury, but Xiao Ming once again blocked him. Stay put. I don't want to start a slaughter here, Xiao Ming said coldly to Zhou Chen. As he spoke, a figure swiftly approached and soon melded into the crowd. The man was gaunt, barely 5'3", yet his body exuded a savage aura that commanded respect. The newcomer was Zhou Jingyun, the younger brother of Zhou family patriarch Zhou Zhengfeng, and a star-shattering stage fifth-rank powerhouse. Gazing at the brutalized Zhou Sheng and the gravely wounded Zhou Chun, Zhou Zengyan's face turned ashen. Die! Zhou Zhengyun charged at Xiao Ming, his iron fists radiating boundless ferocity. Yet even against the full-force strike of a star-shattering stage expert, Xiao Ming did not dodge or evade. A sharp crack rang out as Xiao Ming casually waved his hand like swatting a fly, sending the enraged Zhou Zhengyun flying back. This move shocked the entire crowd. Even a star-shattering stage powerhouse like Zhou Zhengyun seemed as weak as a child before Xiao Ming. Zhou Zhengyun finally calmed down, realizing he had encountered a formidable adversary. He stepped back, squinting as he asked, "Who are you?" "I'm just a hired hand. Someone wanted to spend money to settle a score, so I came to help," Xiao Ming replied with a smile. Fine. Zhou Zhengyun said 3 fines in succession, but then suddenly ordered the Zhou family warriors to form a battle formation. In an instant, over 100 Zhou warriors drew their weapons and assumed combat stances. Over 100 cold muzzles aimed at Xiao Ming and his group. At Zhou Zengyan's command, they would be riddled with. The smile on Xiao Ming's face vanished. He said in a low voice, "Since you've drawn your guns, you're enemies now." He turned to Xiao Zhuer and said, "Miss, put on your light armor to avoid being caught in the crossfire." As he spoke, Xiao Ming reached for a button on his waist, and a layer of black metal emerged from it. The black metal seemed alive, quickly enveloping Xiao Ming's body and forming a skeleton-shaped battle armor. Xiao Ming wore a mecha light armor. As the name suggests, a lightweight mecha. Unlike large combat mechas, it lacked complex systems such as drivetrains, output systems, or plug-in modules. The mecha light armor was built on the logic of mecha skeletal systems, using exclusively biometallic alloys to create a close-fitting battle suit tailored for Star Warriors. The advent of mecha light armor perfectly compensated for the inability of Star Warriors to fully unleash their combat potential when not piloting large mechas. However, since the mecha light armor only had a small energy system, combat relied primarily on the Star Warriors' own star power, limiting sustained operations. After seeing Xiao Zhuer activate her own mecha light armor, Xiao Ming turned to face Zhou Jingyun, his eyes devoid of any emotion. "Form up. Engage." Xiao Ming suddenly roared, and a squad of mecha warriors rushed in from out. It was a standard 10-man squad, all clad in mecha light armor with skull-like designs strikingly similar to Xiao Ming's. They advanced in a half-crouch, rifles raised. 8 mecha warriors formed a diamond formation with long spears, while 2 flanked the squad with star energy shields. The appearance of this mecha squad made the Zhou family Star Warriors look like a rabble, and indeed the actual power disparity was just as stark. A fully armed mecha squad could easily annihilate a 100-man ordinary Star Warrior unit without suffering a single casualty. Moreover, with a powerhouse like Xiao Ming in command. Seeing the mecha squad, Zhou Zhengyun finally panicked. He instinctively activated his own mecha light armor, but refrained from issuing further threats. A faction capable of training mecha warriors required not only immense wealth, but also sufficient political. In the Xingji Empire, every mecha warrior had to be registered with the imperial military, and the empire's control over mecha warriors was extremely strict. Even a powerful family like the Zhou clan on the Aelan Star dared not raise mecha warriors without restraint, lest they be accused of forming a private army. Once labeled with such a charge, the crime of treason was not far off. That was why Zhou Jingyun grew anxious at the sight of the mecha squad. To deploy mecha warriors so openly was beyond the capability of ordinary family forces. "Who exactly are you?" Zhou Jingyun asked again, though his tone now was entirely different from before. He was afraid. "An enemy," Xiao Ming replied tersely, then began advancing with his mecha warriors. The tension in the air reached its peak. Once the mecha warriors appeared, the onlookers cleared out completely. Yet the poor, huddled in their homes, couldn't resist peeking through the windows, their faces involuntarily lighting up with excitement. They knew the Zhou family had finally met their match. Having been bullied by the big families for so long, they couldn't contain their joy at seeing the Zhou family suffer. At the critical moment, an armored vehicle raced in from afar, breaking the tense atmosphere. It stopped brashly between the two sides, and before it had fully halted, a burly man leaped out. "What's going on? Put those guns away. You want to start a rebellion?" The man yelled, cursing profusely as he saw both sides still stalemated. This rough-mannered man was Sun Dianxian, the highest military officer on the Alan Star, and in theory, Sun Dianxian's arrival gave Zhou Zhengyun a way out. He immediately ordered the Zhou family to disarm, unwilling to start a battle with a mecha squad. Seeing the opposing mecha squad still in combat formation, Sun Dianxian's temper flared. He grabbed his military cap and charged at Xiao Ming, raining blows upon him. "You brat! I allowed you to carry weapons ashore to make your work easier, not to start trouble here." Xiao Ming had already deactivated his armor the moment Sun Dianxian charged. Facing the cap attack, he could only flee in a sorry state, shielding his head. Stop. Chief, I'm wrong. Xiao Ming pleaded, his earlier coldness and authority completely gone. Once Sun Dianxian finally stopped, Xiao Ming straightened up and slapped the mecha warrior on the helmet. "What are you waiting for? Didn't you hear the chief order a disarm?" The 10 mecha warriors quickly deactivated their armor and put away their weapons, but their eyes were filled with shock and confusion as they stared at Xiao Ming. They had never seen Xiao Ming treated like this. Not only did he not get angry, but he seemed almost pleased. As they stood dumbfounded, Xiao Zhuer also deactivated her armor and stepped forward politely. "Hello, Uncle Sun." The previously foul-mouthed and furious Sun Dianxian immediately wore a kindly expression upon seeing Xiao Zhuer. Come, let Uncle Sun take a good look at our by family's talented girl." Xiao Zhuer obediently stepped forward and answered Sun Dianxian's questions with courtesy. Far away, Zhou Zhengyun was dumbfounded. When he saw Sun Dianxian beating Xiao Ming, he thought the situation was settled. With Sun Dianxian in charge, the other side would surely suffer. But in the blink of an eye, Sun Dianxian was exchanging pleasantries with Xiao Zhuer, and Zhou Zhengyun sensed something was wrong. Yet looking at the brutalized Zhou Sheng, his face instantly hardened with frost. A mecha warrior sneaked up to Xiao Ming and asked, "Boss, who is that? Why are you so scared of him?" Xiao Ming slapped his subordinate and said irritably, "Old General Sun is the former commander of the 3rd Legion. He's our senior chief. Even General has to stand at attention and take a beating. How could I not be scared? Damn. So he's the boss of my boss," the subordinate exclaimed. Xiao Ming, annoyed, slapped him again. "Get back in line. Don't make the old chief angry." Just as he pushed his subordinate away, he heard Sun Dianxian's voice from behind. "Xiao Ming, come over here and tell me exactly what happened today." Xiao Ming quickly approached Sun Dianxian and cautiously recounted the day's events, with Xiao Zhuer promptly adding details wherever things were unclear. "Commander, that's the situation. It was simply the Zhou family pushing too far, which compelled the young lady to intervene," Xiao Ming said in a low voice. Although Bai Qi had sanctioned today's actions, Xiao Ming could only use Xiao Zhuer as a shield before Sun Dianxian. "Utter nonsense. Little bamboo, don't you know the proper protocols? And you, Xiao Ming, should know better," Sun Dianxian said with a grim expression. "Deploying a mecha squad against local forces. Do you realize how damaging that looks?" Yes, Commander, you're absolutely right." "Well, leave immediately." Xiao Ming dared not utter another word, nodding repeatedly. Xiao Zhuer stood off to the side, fuming silently. She resented Sun Dianxian for taking the side of reason over family, but dared not voice her anger. Xiao Ming approached Qin Xiao and said, "You've killed him and vented your anger. Now let's go." "Hold on. Do you think you can kill someone in broad daylight and just walk away?" Zhou Zhengyun ground his teeth from a distance. If a junior of their clan was stabbed to death in public, and they let it slide, the Zhou family might as well vanish from Aran Star. Zhou Zhengyun turned to Sun Dianxian and said through gritted teeth, "General Sun, do you intend to harbor a murderer?" "Bullshit. That bastard of yours struck first." Xiao Zhuer could no longer hold back and finally erupted into a torrent of curses. Judging by the way Zhou Sheng had swung his blade at Haishan, if Xiao Ming hadn't been present today, Qin Xiao would surely have died. Yet Zhou Sheng was killed in self-defense, and now Zhou Zhengyun was crying foul about public murder. Where was that concern earlier? "You're asking for death." Zhou Chen roared, drawing his blade. Xiao Zhuer smirked coldly. "I'm standing right here. Let's see if you dare kill me." Xiao Ming stepped out once more, fully armed, shielding her. The playful expression vanished from his face, replaced by an icy glare at Zhou Chen. "Draw your blade one more time, and tonight I'll wipe the Zhou family off Aran Star." Zhou Chen's hands trembled with rage. He yearned to strike, but was restrained by fear of Xiao Ming's overwhelming strength. His gaze shifted past Xiao Ming, and Xiao Zhuer finally settling on Qin Xiao. That wretched dog who killed his brother must die today, even if it meant exposing the Zhou family's hidden armed force. The Zhou family had always prided themselves as the foremost of Aran Stars for great clans. If they couldn't even deal with a nobody, wouldn't that be a laughingstock? Sun Dianxian finally stepped forward, shooting Xiao Ming a fierce glare as he passed. Xiao Ming instinctively shrank back, but remained steadfastly in front of Xiao Zhuer. Sun Dianxian looked at Zhou Zhengyun and said calmly, "I've learned what happened today. They'll take the suspect into custody first and give you a satisfactory explanation later." "No, absolutely not." Opposition erupted from both sides before Sun Dianxian could finish. Zhou Zhengyun cried out in protest, sensing Sun Dianxian's intent to shield the culprit. If he let the man be taken away, the matter would likely fade into oblivion. Xiao Zhuer objected because she believed Qin Xiao was blameless and was infuriated that Sun Dianchen dared call him a suspect. No one is taking Qin Xiao anywhere today. I said so. Xiao Zhuer yanked Qin Xiao behind her. Qin Xiao stood beside her with a helpless smile whispering, "Don't make it so obvious. You're making me look like a kept man. How can you joke at a time like this?" Xiao Zhuer said exasperated. "What else can I do? I can't outfight them, so they'll just hide behind you." Qin Xiao replied with a grin. "Then how dare you kill someone right in front of them?" His smile faded as he said softly, "I may not have many skills, but if anyone dares touch those close to me, I'll fight them to the death." Xiao Zhuer gave him a long searching look, but said nothing. Their whispered exchange did not escape Sun Dianchen's notice. The old general frowned, puzzled by their relationship. But Sun Dianchen quickly dismissed the notion that Xiao Zhuer might harbor feelings for Qin Xiao. With her family background, how could she possibly be entangled with such a penniless wretch? Another group hurried over from a distance. Soon a middle-aged man led a squad of star warriors into the crowd. He was obese and exuded an air of luxury, appearing unimpressive in strength. Yet his arrival invigorated the subdued Zhou Jingyun, while Sun Dianchen's expression turned grave. The man was Han Qi, the highest-ranking civil official on Errant Star, and Sun Dianchen's arch-rival. This seemingly harmless fat man possessed formidable personal power, and more importantly, his actual authority on Errant Star rivaled Sun Dianchen's. Zhou Jingyun immediately sidled up to Han Qi and briefed him on the situation. A flicker of delight crossed Han Qi's face before he quickly concealed it. Well, Sun Dianchen. Let's see how you play favorites under my nose today, Han Qi mused inwardly. He had long sought a pretext to target Sun Dianchen, but the general mostly stayed in the military headquarters, leaving Han Qi without any leverage. Now with Sun Dianchen seemingly intent on shielding a public murderer, Han Qi sensed his opportunity. "General Sun, how do you plan to handle this criminal?" Han Qi asked, feigning politeness. The word criminal reignited Xiao Zhuer's fury, but Xiao Ming held her back, shaking his head slightly. Sun Dianchen hadn't anticipated Han Qi's involvement and was momentarily uncertain. Regardless, he would protect Xiao Zhuer, but Qin Xiao's fate mattered little to him. Yet recalling Xiao Zhuer's determination to defend Qin Xiao, he found himself troubled. Turning back, he whispered, "Is this kid really that important?" What he truly wanted to ask was the nature of their relationship. If Qin Xiao wasn't crucial, handing him over to Han Qi might not be the worst option. "Extremely important," Xiao Zhuer declared firmly. "How important?" Sun Dianchen pressed. Noticing her hesitation, he quickly added, "Don't give me that nonsense about marrying no one but him." Huh? Xiao Zhuer was taken aback as if he had hit a nerve. Han Qi watched coldly, sneering, "Tis General Sun, what fine entertainment. Are you putting on a play?" Sun Dianchen's face darkened, but he ignored the taunt and fixed his gaze on Xiao Zhuer. "Give me one sock." Qin Xiao, unwilling to let Xiao Zhuer struggle further, stepped forward and said, "General Sun, I'll handle this myself." "By walking to your death?" Sun Dianchen retorted testily. "If that's your plan, you'd be better off killing yourself. In their hands, death would be a mercy." "They won't find it so easy to kill me," Qin Xiao said dismissively. At that moment, an aura of fierce battle intent radiated from him, as if he cared not about settling this with the Zhou family here and now. Even if a star-shattering realm powerhouse stood before them. A flicker of approval passed through Sun Dianchen's eyes, but he quickly snorted, "Young man, when you lack strength, bold words only sound like jokes to others." Before he could finish, a voice rang out from beyond the crowd. "Who says he lacks the strength to speak boldly?" From beyond the crowd, a young man stepped forward. Though not particularly tall, his presence exuded immense pressure. He stood there casually, yet it felt as though a great mountain had descended from the heavens. The sudden arrival was none other than Xiao Zhuer's brother Bai Qi. "Greetings, old chief," Bai Qi said, offering Sun Dianchen a crisp military salute. As Xiao Ming had previously remarked, even Bai Qi, renowned as the war god, dared not act presumptuously before Sun Dianchen. Of course, Sun Dianchen would not treat Bai Qi the same way he treated Xiao Ming. Gazing at the finest soldier he had ever trained, Sun Dianchen's eyes brimmed with pride. Yet across from them, Han Qi's face turned grim. He recognized Bai Qi instantly and realized that the situation had spiraled completely out of control. Sensing Han Qi's unease, Zhou Zhengyun asked in a low voice, "Lord Han, who is that man?" "Bai Qi." Upon hearing the name, Zhou Zhengyun was stunned. "Which Bai Qi?" he stammered. "The one from the northern border battlefield." "Why is he here?" Zhou Zhengyun grew even more shocked. Then a thought struck him, and he couldn't help but say, "Could it be that Xiao Zhuer really is a member of the Bai family?" Just as this thought crossed his mind, Xiao Zhuer's crisp call of "brother" confirmed Zhou Zhengyun's suspicion. Bai Qi affectionately ruffled Xiao Zhuer's hair before turning his gaze to the opposite side. Under Bai Qi's stare, Zhou Zhengyun felt a chill run down his spine. His fear stemmed not only from Bai Qi's formidable strength, but also from the Bai family's status within the Star Extreme Empire. The Zhou family held sway only on Errant Star, but their power paled in comparison when viewed across the entire Star Extreme Empire. As one of the Empire's 5 pillars, the Bai family wielded true influence over the realm. At that moment, Zhou Zhengyun secretly felt relieved he hadn't shown too much disrespect to Xiao Zhuo earlier. He also hoped that Bai Qi's appearance was solely for his sister's sake, not to defend the nobody who had killed. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. Bai Qi had already learned of the events before arriving, and he pointed at Qin Xiao saying, "Someone said they wanted to kill him, didn't they, eh?" Under Bai Qi's gaze, Han Qi instinctively looked away. Zhou Zhengyun cursed Han Qi inwardly, but eventually steeled himself, and said he killed a member of my Zhou family. "Oh," Bai Qi replied nonchalantly. "But from what I know, your people tried to kill him first." Zhou Zhengyun was momentarily speechless. Tracing the incident back, it indeed started with Zhou Sheng provoking Qin Xiao. He had dared to argue with Sun Dianchen earlier only because Han Qi backed him. But now with Bai Qi stepping in, even the cunning Han Qi had tucked his tail between his legs. How could Zhou Zhengyun dare to blatantly lie? Even if my brother was wrong, it didn't warrant death. Isn't killing someone in the street a crime? Unable to contain himself, Zhou Chen stepped forward and demanded. Bai Qi didn't even glance at him, keeping his eyes fixed on Zhou Zhengyun. "Insolent! Who gave you the right to speak here?" Zhou Zhengyun slapped Zhou Chen across the face. Bai Qi smiled and spoke again. "Qin Xiao is the captain of the 7th Special Operations Unit of my Northern Border Legion. Are you trying to reason with me after assaulting an officer in the street?" These words shocked everyone present. Even Qin Xiao, who was watching the drama unfold, was taken aback. "Since when did I become a Special Operations Captain?" Others might not know the specifics of the Northern Border Legion, but he certainly did. The so-called Special Operations Department was an elite fighting force within the Legion where every member was a top-tier soldier. Coincidentally, before his rebirth, Qin Xiao had indeed been a member of that department, though he had toiled for years to become captain. Now in the blink of an eye, he had become the captain of the 7th unit. Regardless, the announcement Bai Qi made had indeed become Qin Xiao's greatest shield. Assaulting an officer in the street was a grave crime at any time, and being killed in retaliation was considered a merciful end. True to expectations, Zhou Zhengyun's expression grew more somber, and he dared not bluster any longer. Perhaps unwilling to lose face entirely, Han Qi, who had been silent for a while, suddenly asked, "Since when did the captains of the Northern Border Legion's Special Operations Department become so weak? What concern is it of yours what happens in my legion?" Bai Qi replied coolly. Han Qi was at a loss for words. "Mind your own affairs, Lord Han," Bai Qi said disdainfully, then waved his hand to lead Qin Xiao and the others away. After Bai Qi left, Zhou Zhengyun gritted his teeth and asked, "Are we just letting them go like this?" Han Qi glanced at him and said expressionlessly, "What else? I don't believe that Brad is from the Northern Border Legion, let alone an officer." Zhou Zhengyun fumed. "Then go ask Bai Qi yourself, but don't drag me into it." Han Qi waved his hand impatiently and walked away without looking back. Seeing Zhou Sheng killed, yet unable to avenge him, the Zhou family members were all grim-faced. "This can't end like this," Zhou Chun said, a murderous glint in his eyes. Zhou Zhengyun nodded. "Send someone to investigate that kid named Qin Xiao. As soon as we confirm he's not from the Northern Border Legion, bring him back immediately." Having said that, Zhou Zhengyun turned to face Yu Ji. "This whole affair started because of you, didn't it?" he asked coldly. Yu Ji's face turned pale. He started to nod, but then frantically shook his head. "Take him away. Let him accompany Xiao Sheng in death," Zhou Zhengyun said to Zhou Chun. "You can't kill me. I'm a student of the Polu Academy. If you kill me, the Academy won't let you off." Yu Ji screamed, desperately lashing out and injuring several Zhou family star warriors who came to seize him. Losing all patience, Zhou Zhengyun acted himself, slitting Yu Ji's throat with a single stroke of his blade. "A dog like you. Letting you accompany him in death is already leniency toward your family," Zhou Zhengyun spat viciously. The onlookers scattered, none daring to speak up for Yu Ji. Yet thinking of Zhou Sheng's death, many secretly. Finally, someone tougher had come to reign in those mad dogs of the Zhou family. Qin Xiao walked among Bai Qi's group, his mind heavy with thoughts. Xiao Zhuo noticed and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I'm replaying today's fight in my head," Qin Xiao replied. "If I had been calmer when Yu Ji attacked, and not forced a clash, I might have killed Zhou Sheng outright." Xiao Zhuo was speechless. She had thought Qin Xiao was afraid of offending the Zhou family. Instead, he was thinking about how to kill more efficiently. Seeing how close Xiao Zhuo and Qin Xiao were, Sun Dianchen couldn't help but ask, "Who is he?" "A very interesting young man," Bai Qi replied. "Interesting?" Sun Dianchen frowned. "You don't know him well." "This is our first meeting," Bai Qi nodded, then added, "We didn't know each other before. So he's not really the captain of the 7th Special Operations Unit." Sun Dianchen pressed on. Seeing Bai Qi nod again, he said angrily, "Nonsense. Do you know the trouble this kind of fabrication can cause if discovered?" The matter of forging a military officer's identity was neither trivial nor grave. Even if Han Qi could prove Qin Xiao's identity was fabricated at this very moment, there was little he could do to truly harm Bai Qi. Yet this would ultimately become a stain on Bai Qi's record, a weapon to be wielded against him in the future. Xiao Zhuer, gradually realizing the severity of the situation, looked nervously toward Bai Qi. Bai Qi smiled nonchalantly and said, "Why such expressions? He may not have been the captain of Special Operations 7th Division before, but that doesn't mean he never will be." At these words, even Qin Xiao couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. As they walked toward the military headquarters, aside from replaying the battle in his mind, Qin Xiao had been pondering most about this Special Operations 7th Division. The 7th Division was not a combat unit, but a technical one. Although not everyone in a technical division was a powerhouse, establishing oneself there was actually more difficult. The technology required by the Special Operations Division was far from ordinary. In Qin Xiao's view, Bai Qi's statement was most likely prompted by the focus star pattern he had given to Xiao Zhuer. True to form, Bai Qi laid out his arrangement moments later. "As long as you can assist Xiao Mei in crafting the first focus star pattern within 3 months, I will officially appoint you as the captain of the 3rd Squad of Special Operations 7th Division." With that, Bai Qi turned and left as if he had merely mentioned a trivial matter. Xiao Ming patted Qin Xiao on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Keep it up, young friend. I await your arrival at the Northern Border Legion." Ever since witnessing Qin Xiao seize the flag in the supertemporal battlefield, Xiao Ming had been advocating for his recruitment into the Northern Border Legion. Though the 7th Division was not an operational unit joining, it was still a positive step. As for the task of creating the focus star pattern, Xiao Ming saw it as nothing more than a pretext. If a brand new star pattern could be crafted so easily, star pattern masters would not hold such an exalted status. Just as Xiao Ming was delighting in the apparent certainty of the matter, Sun Dianchen suddenly grabbed him and asked, "What's this about the focus star pattern Bai Qi mentioned?" Startled, Xiao Ming instinctively tried to brush it off. But upon meeting Sun Dianchen's piercing gaze, he caved and reluctantly explained the matter of the focus star pattern. After hearing the explanation, Sun Dianchen slapped the back of Xiao Ming's head. "You rascal, you weren't going to tell me unless I asked. Trying to keep this from me." Xiao Ming chuckled sheepishly, though inwardly he was lamenting bitterly. "General, why did you have to leave so early? If the old chief tries to poach him, how can I possibly say no?" Fortunately, Xiao Ming's worry did not come to pass. Sun Dianchen merely glanced at Qin Xiao and said flatly, "Show me the star pattern once it's made." Clearly, Sun Dianchen believed only in seeing to believe. Qin Xiao at this point was not yet worth his effort to recruit. The storm with the Zhou family had temporarily subsided, but everyone knew the true tempest was yet to come. To ensure the creation of the focus star pattern was undisturbed, Bai Qi moved Xiao Zhuer's mechanical workshop from Qingpu Academy to the military base on Elon Star. For safety reasons, Haishan and his family were also relocated and protected there. When Qin Xiao saw Haishan again at the base hospital, his condition filled him with deep anguish. With extensive nerve necrosis in his arms and severe bone fractures, Haishan's arms were now completely useless. More critically, the trauma to his cranial nerves had caused his star core to wither. Haishan was now essentially beyond the reach of cultivation. Qin Xiao walked to the bedside and slowly sat down, saying, "Zhou Sheng is dead. I've avenged you." "Thank you, brother." Haishan nodded weakly. Though his vengeance was complete, there was no trace of joy in him. Seeing Haishan's dejected state, Qin Xiao suddenly said, "Rest for now. They'll find a way to let you continue." "Really?" Haishan looked at him with excitement, his eyes filled with hope. "Don't worry, this problem isn't hard to solve," Qin Xiao said with firm conviction. Not long after leaving Haishan's ward, Xiao Zhuer, who had been following him, couldn't help asking, "Is there really hope of healing an injury this severe?" Before Qin Xiao could answer, she quickly added, "I'm not doubting your medical skills, just curious." "Conventional medical methods are definitely out of the question," Qin Xiao replied. "Then, do you have some special medical technique?" Xiao Zhuer pressed on. "It's not a medical technique. It's genetic modification." "Genetic modification?" Xiao Zhuer was taken aback, then asked, "Do you intend to modify Haishan's body?" Qin Xiao did not answer further. With a furrowed brow, he headed toward the mechanical workshop as if already lost in his own world. Xiao Zhuer stood rooted to the spot, realizing she could understand Qin Xiao less and less. She knew Qin Xiao was proficient in pharmacology. After all, he had recently formulated the genetic agent that propelled him into the star forging realm. But body modification required far more than concocting a few genetic agents to stimulate potential. Could his mastery of pharmacology have reached such depths? Xiao Zhuer murmured in disbelief. Upon arriving at the mechanical workshop, Qin Xiao handed Xiao Zhuer a list and asked, "Can you get these items?" Of course, Xiao Zhuer agreed out of habit. But as she examined the listed materials, a wry smile spread across her face. "None of these are easy to find." The materials on the list were not necessarily exorbitantly priced, but most were rare and not easily acquired with money alone. An assistant nearby leaned in to look at the list and said, "Miss, perhaps these items could be found at the Elon's." "What is Elon Summer?" Xiao Zhuer asked, puzzled. The assistant smiled wryly. His young lady was almost entirely oblivious to anything beyond star patterns. He quickly explained Elon Summer was the grandest carnival on Elon Star, held once every 3 years. During the carnival, multiple auctions were held, offering opportunities to purchase rare materials and treasures seldom seen in daily life. Oh, the carnival's closing ceremony is tomorrow. Tonight's auction is the last one. If we want to go, we need to leave now, the assistant noted after checking the date. All right, let's go now, Xiao Zhuer nodded, then instructed the assistant to prepare the funds. Seeing Xiao Zhuer ready to spend lavishly for Qin Xiao again, the assistant felt some reluctance. He didn't deny Qin Xiao's skill in star patterns, but it was far from worthy of such investment from Xiao Zhuer. Hurry up and prepare. If funds are insufficient, have my brother set some aside for me, Xiao Zhuer urged, noticing the assistant standing there in a daze. After sending the dazed assistant off, Xiao Zhuer noticed Qin Xiao was also standing motionless. She walked over and gave him an exasperated shove, saying, "What are you standing there for? Don't you want the materials on your list?" Qin Xiao was pushed to the ground, leaving Xiao Zhuer bewildered. "Have I gotten stronger?" Just then she heard him exclaim excitedly, "We're about to hit the jackpot." As a triennial grand event on the planet Aaron, the Aaron Summer always stirred considerable excitement with each edition. It was not merely due to the carnival's fervor, but also because every auction featured treasures that set hearts aflutter. The reason Qin Xiao seemed to rave like a madman about striking it rich was that he suddenly recalled numerous details related to this auction. 3 major treasures appeared at this auction, yet 2 of them drew little attention. At the time, no one knew their truth. The 2 treasures whose real value was concealed were the Phoenix Egg and the Bomi Sphere. The Phoenix Egg, as its name suggests, was a beast egg capable of hatching a mythical phoenix. The Bomi Sphere was a set of mechanical exoskeleton. Wearing it allowed one to master a combat technique. It was a product of cross-era technology impossible to create with current mechanical science. Qin Xiao knew of these items because before his rebirth he had captured a space pirate and discovered them on his person. Under torture, the space pirate revealed the origins and uses of these 2 items. According to him, he had no idea of their marvelous functions at the time and had bought them merely out of curiosity. After killing the space pirate, the Phoenix Egg and Bomi Sphere became Qin Xiao's possessions. Unfortunately, shortly after acquiring these treasures, he met his demise in battle and was reborn. If I can get the Bomi Sphere now and learn the Luophone combat technique, I can compensate for many of my combat. As for the Phoenix Egg, once hatched, it can definitely be sold for a sky-high price. Even a juvenile beast could fetch at least its class mecha right. Qin Xiao calculated incessantly. If he could secure this bargain, he would no longer worry about resources for a while. After his excitement subsided, he instinctively wanted to share this with Xiao Zhuer, but then froze again. How could he explain this? Should he confess to Xiao Zhuer that he had been reborn and that his excitement stemmed from knowing what would happen next? If he said that, would Xiao Zhuer think he was insane or lying? At that moment, Qin Xiao had no idea how to. Finally, Qin Xiao could only resort to mystification. I have a special ability to appraise treasures. I can see the true value of certain rare materials. Just watch my performance at the auction. Xiao Zhuer stared at Qin Xiao with skepticism for a long time. Her gaze clearly showed she didn't believe his. Nevertheless, even if only to gather the materials on Qin Xiao's list, they had to attend the auction. The auction was held on Tsuyuan Island on Aaron, a large island in the middle of a lake. Besides the main auction venue, there was also a massive market. In fact, this market was the most popular spot, as not everyone had the wealth to bid at the auction, but in the market one might find good deals through sharp eyesight. Upon arriving at the market, Qin Xiao wandered around casually, as if he had no intention of going to the auction at all. Seeing Qin Xiao's eagerness, Xiao Zhuer couldn't help but ask, "Do you really have a special appraising ability?" "Sort of," Qin Xiao replied dismissively. Xiao Zhuer frowned slightly. Passing by a stall, she picked up a piece of strange metal and asked, "What's this?" Qin Xiao glanced at it and said offhandedly, "This is your wood exotic metal. It's extremely hard but lacks ductility, usually used to make class stellar energy weapons." Xiao Zhuer nodded. Wood exotic metal was not common, and the fact that Qin Xiao could identify it with a single glance proved his deep knowledge of mechanical materials. "And this, eh?" Xiao Zhuer picked up a bottle at another stall and asked. Qin Xiao took the bottle, opened it, and casually used a testing tool to analyze its contents. Soon he said, "Golden rainbow jade snake venom with mild paralytic toxicity. It needs to be mixed with clarity liquid to produce a calming agent of grade or higher." Once again, Qin Xiao was correct, but the look of confusion on Xiao Zhuer's face deepened. "These things aren't taught at Qingpu Academy. How did you learn them?" Xiao Zhuer asked. "Nonsense. Relying on those teachers who just coast through life would make anyone a fool," Qin Xiao retorted irritably. "Did you also learn star pattern knowledge by yourself?" Xiao Zhuer persisted. "Yes, self-taught." "Impressive, right?" Qin Xiao replied distractedly. To avoid further interruptions from Xiao Zhuer, Qin Xiao suddenly quickened his pace, intending to go solo. Xiao Zhuer was about to follow when her gaze was drawn to a metal sphere at a stall. It was a cyan-gray metal sphere, strictly speaking not a perfect sphere, but a polyhedron resembling a sphere. What caught Xiao Zhuer's attention was not its strange shape, but the peculiar magnetic field fluctuations on the sphere. "What is this?" she asked instinctively. Previously her questions had been feigned ignorance, but this time she genuinely couldn't identify the origin of this bizarre metal sphere. Qin Xiao initially wanted to ignore Xiao Zhuer, but when he saw the metal sphere his pupils contracted instantly. This was the Bomi sphere, the very thing he had been searching for. Qin Xiao kept his head down, so no one saw the change in his expression. He pretended to be indifferent as he took the Bomi sphere, feeling its chaotic, yet familiar magnetic field. His excitement barely contained. This seems like some kind of exotic metal, but I can't identify the material, Qin Xiao lied with a frown. Sir, how much is this? He asked casually. The stall owner was a seemingly dull, middle-aged man, but when he heard Qin Xiao's inquiry, the sharp glint in his eyes betrayed his mercantile nature. 30,000 star diamonds, non-negotiable, the owner said with a smile. Hearing this price, Qin Xiao knew he was safe. The owner clearly hadn't discovered the secret of the Bomi sphere, or he wouldn't sell it for just 30,000 star diamonds. Qin Xiao put on a troubled expression and said, "What is this and why is it so expensive?" "This is Chaos Source exotic metal. It has a special chaotic magnetic field used specifically to make interference-type stellar energy weapons," the owner explained with a straight face. Qin Xiao barely suppressed a laugh. This stall owner was a complete profiteer, spinning lies with a straight face while maintaining a sincere expression. If Qin Xiao hadn't known what Chaos Source exotic metal really looked like, he might have been fooled. But regardless of what the owner said, Qin Xiao was ready to be deceived. The thought of acquiring the Bomi sphere for just 30,000 star diamonds made it hard for Qin Xiao to suppress the smile tugging at his lips despite his repeated warnings to stay calm. Just as Qin Xiao was about to continue playing dumb and willingly fall into the trap, Xiao Zhuer spoke up again. "No, this is definitely not chaotic source metal. Its magnetic field does not exhibit the characteristics of a chaotic magnetic field." Standing before the stall, Xiao Zhuer refuted the vendor's nonsense with utmost precision. Qin Xiao lowered his head, covering his face, and let out a soft sigh. "I really owe you one." He thought through gritted teeth, wishing he could sew Xiao Zhuer's mouth shut. Fortunately, the vendor was a seasoned swindler with a strong mental fortitude. Facing Xiao Zhuer's challenge, he said sternly, "Little girl, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. No one who stirs up trouble here ever leaves unscathed." As he spoke, the vendor's eyes kept darting to the side, hinting that the patrolling military star warriors could come and arrest the troublemakers at any moment. Yes, you're right, brother. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't be angry." Qin Xiao put on an act of fearing a big trouble, apologizing profusely while subtly signaling Xiao Zhuer to settle the bill and leave quickly. Under Qin Xiao's relentless eye signals, Xiao Zhuer finally noticed his unusual behavior. At the critical moment, she punched Qin Xiao in the chest and feigned anger. "Do you think it's easy for me to earn money? And you're wasting it like this?" Cursing and grumbling, Xiao Zhuer tossed out a star energy card and paid for Qin Xiao. As he took the card, the vendor's face was filled with disbelief. Clearly, even he hadn't thought that worthless thing would actually sell. He pocketed the card with lightning speed and shoved the Bomi ball into Qin Xiao's hand. "Good eyes, young man. Put it away quickly or the magnetic field might go haywire." Qin Xiao nodded repeatedly. He didn't need the reminder. At that moment, he wished he could swallow the Bomi ball and hide it in his stomach. After quickly distancing themselves from the stall, Xiao Zhuer dropped her disguise and asked curiously, "What exactly is that thing?" "This is a Bomi ball. Inside is a combat technique. Once you learn it, you can take on 10 opponents." Qin Xiao grinned. "All right." Xiao Zhuer didn't press further, dismissing it as Qin Xiao's usual nonsense. "Where are we going now?" she continued. "Find a safe place, and he'll show you the true value of the Bomi ball." Qin Xiao said mysteriously. "I'm not in a hurry. We can wait until the auction is over." Xiao Zhuer said. "I am." Qin Xiao replied. "I'm not in a hurry. We can wait until the auction is over." Xiao Zhuer said. "I am." Qin Xiao replied. It was obvious that these were all Zhou family star warriors. Clearly, the Zhou family wouldn't give up on getting revenge on Qin Xiao. They were only refraining from acting rashly because of Bai Qi's intervention. Qin Xiao was even more aware that if it weren't for the powerful guard Xiao Zhuer had with her, even with Bai Qi's warning, they might have already been in grave danger. "I must boost my combat power quickly." This was Qin Xiao's most urgent thought, which was why he insisted on opening the Bomi ball immediately regardless of the timing. With Xiao Zhuer's money power, they quickly found a highly sealed meeting room. As soon as the door closed, Qin Xiao eagerly placed the Bomi ball on the table and took out the tools he had prepared. Xiao Zhuer was initially full of anticipation, but when she saw Qin Xiao only produce a D-level magnetic field disruptor, she couldn't help frowning. "Can this thing open the Bomi ball?" Xiao Zhuer asked. She began to doubt Qin Xiao's judgment. If a magnetic field disruptor was all that was needed to open the Bomi ball, how could its true value have remained undiscovered for so long? But her doubts soon vanished. The way Qin Xiao manipulated the magnetic field disruptor made her temporarily forget about studying the Bomi ball. It was the first time she had seen someone use a magnetic field disruptor to such an extent. Though Qin Xiao was only using a D-level device, he wielded it with exquisite precision. Accurate, delicate. That was Xiao Zhuer's most genuine feeling at that moment. Qin Xiao changed the magnetic field fluctuation every second. Such a rapid frequency left her stunned. This was no easy feat. It required extremely high control over stellar energy. Even if Qin Xiao was operating the disruptor in a seemingly random manner, switching magnetic field fluctuations so frequently was no small accomplishment. Moreover, Qin Xiao was clearly not operating randomly. As the disruptor continued to run, the magnetic field fluctuation of the Bomi ball underwent drastic changes. Before long, the originally chaotic magnetic field of the Bomi ball began to stabilize and was soon completely. Only then did Xiao Zhuer realize that the chaotic magnetic field on the Bomi ball was actually a magnetic lock, and Qin Xiao had opened it by using magnetic field cancellation. While Xiao Zhuer was still lost in shock, Qin Xiao had already opened the Bomi ball and retrieved 2 metal balls, one black and one white. More metal balls? Xiao Zhuer asked instinctively. Do we need to crack 2 more magnetic locks? Qin Xiao's face also showed confusion. Why are there 2? The metal balls were the activation devices for the mechanical skeleton. However, the presence of 2 balls puzzled Qin Xiao. He knew that the black metal ball contained the mechanical skeleton he wanted, called Fenggu. The last time he acquired a Bomi ball, he had obtained Fenggu. But now there was an extra white metal ball. Despite his doubts, Qin Xiao pressed the activation device of Fenggu onto his shoulder and activated the dark liquid metal spread along Qin Xiao's body, quickly forming a metallic framework that attached to his torso and eventually merged directly into his body. Qin Xiao closed his eyes, ready to let Fenggu drive his body to move. But after a long time, his body showed no change. Xiao Zhuer couldn't help asking, how long are you going to keep posing? Qin Xiao scratched his head, awkwardly puzzled. That's not right. This is how Fenggu is activated. His gaze fell on the white metal ball, and almost inexplicably, he handed it to Xiao Zhuer. Try putting on this mechanical skeleton. Qin Xiao said. Okay. Xiao Zhuer took the white metal ball without hesitation and activated the mechanical skeleton just as Qin Xiao had done. This time a silvery white liquid metal appeared, and after forming a mechanical framework, it also merged into Xiao Zhuer's body. Xiao Zhuer could clearly feel the presence of the mechanical skeleton. At that moment, it felt as if all her bones had been replaced. Before she could ask what kind of miraculous technology this was, a strange magnetic field fluctuation suddenly emerged in her body. Correspondingly, Qin Xiao's body also emitted a magnetic field fluctuation, and they even resonated with each other. Suddenly, Xiao Zhuer felt as if her body were on fire. The sudden burning sensation made her panic. What is going on? Don't be afraid, I'm here. At the critical moment, Qin Xiao rushed to Xiao Zhuer's side and grasped her hand. Like Xiao Zhuer, Qin Xiao was also enduring the agony of being engulfed in flames. Yet he remained unperturbed, knowing this was the true state of the Phoenix Bones activation. The burning sensation was not due to actual fire within their bodies, but rather the intense fluctuations of the magnetic field. Before long, the searing pain gradually subsided, and they were finally freed from their torment. Seeing her furrowed brows, Qin Xiao asked with a smile, do you sense an extra strand of mental energy in your spiritual world? Xiao Zhuer nodded and asked, why is that? Qin Xiao shook his head with a wry smile, unable to explain the origin of the Phoenix Bone. Both the mechanical technology of the Phoenix Bone and the mysterious liquid metal it was made of were products not belonging to this era. He could only tell Xiao Zhuer that it was a good thing, and that the extra mental energy in her spiritual world was the cultivation method for the Falling Phoenix combat skill. The activated Phoenix Bone would guide their bodies to cultivate the Falling Phoenix combat skill, allowing them to quickly master this powerful killing technique. Falling Phoenix was a blade technique. The strike itself held little power, but possessed an extremely special effect: skill depletion. Any star warrior struck by Falling Phoenix would be unable to use any combat skills or star arts for 1 second. 1 second might seem brief, but in the heat of intense combat, that single moment of vulnerability could prove fatal. Both before his rebirth and now, Qin Xiao valued Falling Phoenix greatly. It was an essential means to defeat those stronger than him. Qin Xiao was still cheerfully explaining the effects and wonders of Falling Phoenix to Xiao Zhuer when he noticed her frowning, as if she didn't understand a word he was saying. Upon inquiry, Qin Xiao was dumbfounded. According to the mental energy Xiao Zhuer had received, what she had activated was not the Phoenix Bone, but the Simurgh Bone. The combat skill attached to the Simurgh Bone was not Falling Phoenix, but Flying Simurgh. Flying Simurgh was a support skill that could double the power of a Star Warrior's combat skills or star arts for a period of time. Upon hearing the support effect of Flying Simurgh, Qin Xiao was stunned once more. Are you sure it's a 100 increase in power and not 10? He asked, his eyes wide with shock. Xiao Zhuer nodded and said, it's 100. I couldn't be mistaken about this. Qin Xiao smiled, trusting that she would never be wrong about such a thing. A Star Rune Master's sensitivity to amplification values far exceeded that of ordinary people, as every Star Rune was created to enhance strength. Even the slightest difference in amplification, let alone the gap between 110, would never be mistaken by a Star Rune Master. Just as Qin Xiao was marveling at the power of flying simurgh, Xiao Zhuer added, "The mental energy I received also mentioned that if flying simurgh is used on the owner of the phoenix bone, the amplification effect doubles." Hearing this, Qin Xiao was frozen in shock yet again. Didn't that mean that with flying simurgh his lethality in battle would be amplified by a full 200? Such support capability defied common sense. Since entering the age of mechanical technology, human star warriors had become well acquainted with the concept of power amplification. The advent of star runes had accustomed star warriors to enjoying the benefits of various power boosts. However, among all currently known star runes, no single rune could achieve a 100 amplification of combat skill power, let alone 200. Even a star rune matrix composed of multiple runes struggled to achieve such a pure amplification of power. One must know that Qin Xiao's fire element affinity gained through fire assimilation only boosted the power of his fire-type star arts and combat skills by 50. And the amplification ability of element affinity was already considered heaven-defying, which was why countless star warriors yearned for it. Yet compared to flying simurgh, the boost from element affinity seemed far less divine. Are there any restrictions? Qin Xiao pressed. Does using flying simurgh require any special conditions? He knew full well that no amplification could exist without a price. Xiao Zhuer seemed to read the mental energy again, and then explained the various conditions for using flying simurgh. First, a mental connection must be established between the caster and the recipient, otherwise flying simurgh would not take effect. Second, the greater the disparity in strength between the two, the smaller the amplification. Third, the source of the power amplification was the caster themselves. Once their star power was depleted, the effect of flying simurgh would vanish immediately. Fourth, if the distance between the two exceeded 100 meters during flying simurgh's duration, the effect would also dissipate. Fifth, flying simurgh could be used on oneself. Listening to Xiao Zhuer's explanation, Qin Xiao nodded. Despite the limitations, they paled in comparison to the benefits flying simurgh could bring. If possible, try to keep the simurgh bone activated as much as possible during training or work. There might be other gains, Qin Xiao advised. If it weren't for the high star power consumption of the phoenix bone's activation, he would have kept it active 24 hours a day to accelerate his cultivation. Xiao Zhuer listened attentively to Qin Xiao's advice, her face brimming with joy. Though not a combatant herself, she was not ignorant of battle. The role this simurgh bone could play was nothing short of heaven-defying. As for its value, it was immeasurable. She realized she had hit the jackpot by following Qin Xiao. In comparison, the star diamonds she had spent on him before were utterly insignificant. How about I try to get you a 30 share of the focus star runes profits when we get back? Xiao Zhuer offered, thinking this was the only way to compensate him. Qin Xiao waved his hand dismissively and said, "What's on you is yours. Don't make things complicated." After briefly familiarizing himself with the star power circulation pattern of blade technique, falling phoenix Qin Xiao beckoned and said, "Come on, there are still good things waiting for us at the auction." Watching Qin Xiao turn away with an air of nonchalance, Xiao Zhuer found him increasingly enigmatic. He was visibly poor, so poor that he couldn't even afford the most basic gene potions. Yet he had willingly given up a 10 share of the focus star runes profits to avenge Haishan. He could also casually gift her the priceless simurgh bone. His poverty was real, and his generosity was equally genuine. His desire to earn money and acquire more resources was also true. He loved wealth, but was not greedy. Subtly, Xiao Zhuer even felt he possessed the air of a gentleman. Just as she was thinking this, Qin Xiao, who had reached the door, suddenly turned around and said, "Hurry up, what are you standing there for? Don't tell me you're thinking of offering yourself to me because of the simurgh bone. No need, really. I prefer big-chested girls. You can't challenge my weakness," he said with a look of feigned disdain. "Go to hell." Xiao Zhuer chased after him in a fit of rage. After some horseplay, they arrived at the main auction. No sooner had they sat down than Qin Xiao heard the auctioneer on stage announce, "This lot a pair of phoenix eggs. Starting bid 1 million star diamonds." Qin Xiao was startled. Things were developing differently than he had anticipated. An item with a starting bid of over 1 million was unlikely to be a bargain. What worried him most was the possibility that the true value of the phoenix eggs had been discovered. If so, they could only be won through a sky-high bid. Did that space pirate deceive me, or has the original course of events changed? Qin Xiao fell into deep thought. The thought that things had deviated from what should have been filled him with an inexplicable sense of panic. Xiao Zhuer suddenly nudged him and asked anxiously, "What are you thinking about? Do we buy this or not? Are you buying or not?" "It's about to go unsold," Xiao Zhuer continued to ask. Buy, place the bid." Qin Xiao snapped back to his senses and quickly said. He had been worried that the phoenix egg's value was too high, only to find that no one had placed a single bid. It seemed everyone still doubted the authenticity of the phoenix egg appearing at this auction, and perhaps even the seller thought so, otherwise they wouldn't have set such a low price of 1 million star diamonds. 1 million. When Xiao Zhuer placed her bid, many in the hall cast curious glances her way. Beast eggs at auctions always sparked polarized opinions. Either they would hatch a rare beast yielding tens or hundreds of times the return on investment, or they were dead eggs that would never hatch, leading to total loss. However, since most beast eggs turned out to be dead, people had gradually lost interest in such gambles. 1,000,000 star diamonds was no small sum, but clearly no one at this auction was willing to take the risk. Xiao Zhuer was the first and likely the only one. Seeing Xiao Zhuer's bid, the auctioneer on stage perked up and began to hype it vigorously. Yet no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find a second bidder. It should be settled, Qin Xiao said with a smile, observing the situation. But before he finished, a grating voice, 2 million. This bid caused an even greater stir in the hall than Xiao Zhuer's initial offer. Everyone turned to see who was foolish enough to gamble 2,000,000 star diamonds on a chance. But when they saw who it was, they wisely wiped the mockery from their faces as if afraid of incurring his wrath. The bidder was none other than Zhou Chen, Qin Xiao's enemy. The moment their eyes met, Zhou Chen made a throat-slitting gesture, his gaze brimming with murderous intent. Is this bastard insane? Even if he wants to target me, he doesn't have to throw money away, Qin Xiao grumbled. Zhou Chen suddenly stood up and taunted. What's the matter? The esteemed Special Forces captain of the Northern Border Legion can't even afford 2,000,000 star diamonds. At these words, the enthusiastic spectators once again fixed their gazes on Xiao Zhuer and Qin Xiao. What's a Northern Border Legion member doing here? What rank is a Special Forces captain? Who's the captain, the man or the woman? That girl. Seems to be Xiao Zhuer. Who's Xiao Zhuer? Fool, you don't know Xiao Zhuer. She's the star patternist who's been all the rage lately. At just 17, she crafted a first-order superstar pattern. Her future is limitless. The auction hall grew noisy, with some curious about the Northern Border Legion's Special Forces captain and others wondering why Zhou Chen targeted them. Seeing Zhou Chen's provocative glare, Xiao Zhuer's expression remained unchanged. She lowered her voice and asked Qin Xiao, are you sure you want this phoenix egg? I do want it, but wanting it is enough. Xiao Zhuer cut him off and raised her paddle. 5 million. At these words, the entire hall was stunned. People stopped pondering the captain's identity, fixated instead on what Xiao Zhuer was thinking. Gambling 5,000,000 star diamonds on a chance. Was this audacity or folly? Even the auctioneer was momentarily frozen by the price. After a long pause, he cleared his throat and announced, 5 million once, 5 million twice. After the second call, he smirked obsequiously at Zhou Chen. Young Master Zhou, it's at 5 million twice. During the conflict over Zhou Sheng's death, Zhou Chen could only rage impotently, not because he was weak, but because Bai Qi and Sun Dianxian were powerful enough to ignore him. But this lowly auctioneer dared not offend Zhou Chen. If he carelessly dropped the gavel and embarrassed Zhou, his survival beyond the hall would be questionable. 6 million, Zhou Chen said casually, as if 6 million star diamonds meant nothing. 10 million, Xiao Zhuer replied, even more nonchalantly. 11 million, Zhou Chen continued. 20 million, Xiao Zhuer doubled down with reckless abandon. The 20 million price drew gasps and put Zhou Chen on edge. He finally realized who he was bidding against. The Bai family's precious jewel, who could casually toss tens of millions of star diamonds if she went mad. But Zhou Chen couldn't afford to gamble 20 million star diamonds. Yet unwilling to back down publicly, he gritted his teeth and followed 21. He couldn't even utter the word million, perhaps from anxiety. Unlike Zhou Chen's hesitation, Xiao Zhuer remained bold and decisive. Without a second thought, she bid again, 30 million star diamonds. As the price hit 30 million, the crowd's mood began to shift. They secretly wondered if these two phoenix eggs might actually hatch into a phoenix beast. Whispers erupted, turning the auction into a chaotic bazaar. But Zhou Chen still faced a dilemma. Should he continue? He had enough funds for a few more bids, but he hadn't come for the He couldn't waste his star diamonds on two beast eggs that required gambling. As Zhou Chen hesitated, a crisp voice rang out, 40 million star diamonds. At first, people thought Xiao Zhuer was bidding against herself, but they found the voice came from the Zhao family's VIP box. The Zhao family, like the Zhou, was one of the 4 great houses of Errant Star. The Zhao family's hallmark was their immense wealth. As the richest among the 4 houses, they rarely failed to snatch what they wanted at auctions. Only the bid came from the VIP box, with no one appearing, but the 40 million offer showcased the Zhao family's opulence. Seizing the distraction, Zhou Chen quietly sat down. Finally, a fool had taken the heat for him, sparing him from embarrassment. But just as everyone expected Xiao Zhuer to retreat in the face of the Zhao family's bid, she calmly raised the price, 50 million. The auction's atmosphere ignited. Before the grand finale, a 50 million high price had already appeared. And more astonishingly, 50 million was spent on 2 beast eggs of unknown quality. At this moment, even Qin Xiao felt things spiraling out of control. The phoenix egg had to be secured, but the 50 million price weighed heavily on him. Xiao Zhuer's assistant approached and whispered, "Miss, our reserve funds are running low." Hearing this, Qin Xiao's heart churned with mixed feelings. He knew the phoenix egg's value far exceeded 50 million star diamonds, but since it wasn't his money, he couldn't speak up. Seeing Xiao Zhuer's brow furrow slightly, he instinctively thought she was also feeling the pinch. But then she raised an eyebrow and murmured, "How is that possible? Did I only bring this much?" Even though Qin Xiao had lived 2 lives and witnessed many grand spectacles before his rebirth, he still couldn't help but feel like spitting blood upon hearing Xiao Zhuer's words. 50 million star diamonds were merely this little bit of money in her mouth. Xiao Zhuer's assistant, well-versed in her temperament, knew that the moment his young lady raised an eyebrow, it was a precursor to anger. He quickly changed his tune. "We still have star diamonds. The general has prepared 100 million for you, but..." Xiao Zhuer asked. "But the most important auction item hasn't appeared yet. If we use up all our reserves now, when that item comes out, then we won't buy it. I only want the phoenix egg now," Xiao Zhuer stated resolutely. As she communicated with her assistant, a new bid finally emerged from the Zhao family's VIP section. 60 million. Before the crowd could marvel again at the Zhao family's wealth, Xiao Zhuer unhesitatingly gave an even more explosive bid: 100 million star diamonds. Once this bid was announced, all arguments and speculations became meaningless. Whether those who intended to compete, or those who mocked Xiao Zhuer for being rich, but foolish, all fell silent. Faced with a bid of 100 million star diamonds, even those who wanted to buy the phoenix egg to try their luck completely abandoned the idea. As for the mockery of Xiao Zhuer being rich, but foolish, it now seemed laughable instead. When wealth reached such an extent, who cared about others' opinions? Zhou Chun, who had sat down earlier, stood up again, his eyes towards Xiao Zhuer, and Qin Xiao now faintly filled with fear. Originally, he thought that on the territory of Aaron Star, as long as he found the right moment, killing Qin Xiao, or even eliminating Xiao Zhuer, wouldn't be too difficult. Now it seemed his idea was far too naive. Finally, someone emerged from the Zhao family's VIP section, a tall, slender girl with a high ponytail. Zhou Chun immediately recognized her as Zhao Ruling, the beloved daughter of the Zhao family's patriarch. After appearing, Zhao Ruling gracefully announced their withdrawal from the bidding, conceding defeat in this auction. Standing in the VIP section, she said with a smile, "No wonder, despite our family's warm invitations, Master." Xiao remained unmoved. "It turns out you are a wealthy heiress yourself." Zhao Ruling addressed Xiao Zhuer as Master Xiao, a respectful title used for star pattern masters. Her words enlightened many, making them suddenly realize why Xiao Zhuer had always been indifferent to the recruitment attempts of the 4 great families. As Zhao Ruling said, Xiao Zhuer herself was a wealthy heiress. How could she possibly accept recruitment from others? After the bidding frenzy, Xiao Zhuer finally obtained the phoenix egg as she wished. When people saw her casually hand the phoenix egg to Qin Xiao, a blaze of gossip began to burn through the crowd. Everyone began to speculate about the relationship between Qin Xiao and Xiao Zhuer, and whether Qin Xiao also had a hidden background. Unfortunately, Xiao Zhuer didn't give others much time to study her. After Qin Xiao confirmed that these 2 phoenix eggs were what he wanted, they leisurely left the auction house. As for the upcoming grand finale auction item, she had no interest at all. But Xiao Zhuer's overly obvious actions also piqued the curiosity of some observant individuals about the phoenix egg. Keep following them and find an opportunity to investigate what's so special about those 2 phoenix eggs. After Xiao Zhuer and Qin Xiao left, Zhou Chun immediately ordered his men. Meanwhile, many people left the VIP sections of the auction house, their hurried expressions suggesting they all shared the same purpose. After returning to the military base, Qin Xiao, without another word, pulled Xiao Zhuer into her mechanical workshop. Xiao Zhuer's face was filled with anticipation. After all, this was something she had spent 100 million star diamonds on, and she was eager to know if the money was well spent. The assistant stood guard outside the mechanical workshop's door, or rather, he was left outside. He let his imagination run wild behind the iron door, pondering what secret lay within the phoenix egg worth 100 million star diamonds. Not far away, Bai Qi and Xiao Ming stood with hands behind their backs, staring blankly at the mechanical workshop. 100 million star diamonds, just spent like that, Bai Qi said softly, a bitter smile on his face. Xiao Ming scratched his head, unsure of what to say. He had watched Xiao Zhuer grow up, and knew well that aside from her interest in star pattern studies, his young lady hardly cared about anything else. She still didn't have a full grasp of star diamonds, unaware that money should be earned with calculation and tasks done. The 100 million star diamonds Xiao Zhuer threw away at the auction were almost all of Bai Qi's private assets, and in return, they got 2 mysterious beast eggs of unknown origin. If that kid Qin Xiao can't prove the value of those 2 eggs, they'll skin him alive, Xiao Ming suddenly said. Bai Qi glanced at him and laughed. "Why pretend with me? You're actually hoping those phoenix eggs turn out to be worthless junk, so that kid will be indebted to us for life." His thought, seen through, Xiao Ming gave a silly grin and continued scratching his head. "Forget it, consider it an advance on his 10% share." Bai Qi waved his hand. He continued, "As long as we can create one focus star pattern with little sister's ability, she can definitely mass produce it. The value of a focus star pattern far exceeds 100 million star diamonds." "Actually, I think so too," Xiao Ming chuckled. Only in front of Bai Qi would this iron-blooded general reveal his simple and honest side. In truth, from the first time he saw Qin Xiao fight in the time-space battlefield, Xiao Ming had taken a liking to him. He was a true iron-blooded warrior who had crawled out of mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and he greatly admired Qin Xiao's bloody fighting style. Even without the focus star pattern, he had always insisted on recruiting Qin Xiao to the Northern Border Legion. He even had a persistent illusion that Qin Xiao seemed to have fought in the Northern Border Legion for years. Oh, otherwise, how could their fighting styles be so similar? Let's go back. Hope this kid can bring us some surprises. Bai Qi beckoned to leave, but as he turned, a violent fluctuation of star power startled him. Both he and Xiao Ming instantly activated their mechanical light armor. With grave expressions, they glanced at the mechanical workshop not far away and then sprinted towards it. Before they could arrive, the iron door of the workshop was blasted open by a wave of fire. The iron door flew out like a cannonball, but fortunately, Bai Qi caught it, preventing this cannonball from causing it. Bai Qi's face darkened, his eyes filled with murderous ferocity. From the moment the flame flashed to the door flying out, only a brief moment had passed. But by now the mechanical workshop had turned into a sea of flames. The intense heat waves caused even Bai Qi, clad in light armor, to feel waves of searing pain. What kind of flame is this? Bai Qi pondered the origin of this strange flame while charging into the sea of fire. Behind him, Xiao Ming gritted his teeth and followed, but immediately jumped back out. The temperature of the fire was too high. Xiao Ming even suspected that staying inside for half a minute might melt his light armor. What kind of fire is this? Xiao Ming was horrified, sharing Bai Qi's confusion. Then Xiao Ming thought of a terrifying possibility the young lady hasn't already. Xiao Ming dared not dwell on the thought any longer and frantically shook his head to expel the dangerous notion from his mind. Meanwhile, Bai Qi desperately searched for someone amidst the sea of flames, disregarding his own safety. Little bamboo! Little bamboo! Bai Qi shouted loudly, his face etched with panic. Standing within the inferno, he had already grasped the terrifying power of the blaze and knew that his sister's strength was no match for such destructive fire. Yet he continued his frantic search, hoping for a miracle. Suddenly, a wave of perilous aura surged toward him. Bai Qi narrowed his eyes slightly and threw a punch into the empty air. The moment his fist shot out, a rushing wall of flame was blasted apart. As the fiery wave dissipated, Bai Qi caught a glimpse of a phantom resembling a soaring bird. Though merely a shadow, it struck Bai Qi with an overwhelming sense of awe. In that instant, he felt as if he were witnessing the birth of a sovereign. Then another similar apparition emerged beside it. A crisp, piercing cry rang out, and the scorching heat within the mechanical chamber began to recede rapidly. The boundless sea of flames was entirely absorbed by the two phantoms. Once the flames had vanished, the chamber lay in utter ruin. The room, constructed from high-strength composite metal, had been reduced to charred rubble, and all the equipment inside had been incinerated. Amid the debris, Bai Qi finally spotted Xiao Zhuo. He rushed over and carefully examined her, exhaling in relief only after confirming she was completely unharmed. What exactly happened here? Bai Qi asked with a furrowed brow. Xiao Zhuo shook her head, equally at a loss. All she had seen was Qin Xiao drenching the phoenix egg with his own blood, followed by an explosion. Strangely, though she was at the epicenter, she had suffered no injury whatsoever. After hearing Xiao Zhuo's account, Bai Qi turned his gaze toward Qin Xiao, who was not far away. Qin Xiao sat cross-legged on the ground, eyes tightly shut, his stellar energy radiating in long, deep waves, clearly having entered a unique state of cultivation. Beside him were two adorably plump little yellow chicks, diligently devouring the surrounding eggshells. After finishing them, the two chicks wobbled unsteadily toward Qin Xiao. The scene seemed harmonious at first, but in the next moment they abruptly plunged their beaks into Qin Xiao's thigh and began to suck his blood. This? Xiao Zhuo gasped in shock, instinctively moving to intervene. Bai Qi stopped her, his expression grave as he said, "Don't panic. This kid is in no danger." Indeed, Qin Xiao was not in peril. On the contrary, his condition was exceptionally good. To hatch the phoenix egg, the most crucial ingredient was his blood. He did not fully understand why this was so, but he knew that this was the only way to obtain the phoenix beast. However, this time was entirely different from the previous occasion before his rebirth. Not only had the phoenix beast been hatched, but something new had also appeared in his spiritual world. The additional information in his spiritual world was a cultivation art named the Nirvana art. A part of Qin Xiao's memory was missing. Everything before the age of 6 was a blank. But ever since he could remember, a nameless art had resided in his mind, and he had been practicing it all these years. The Nirvana art he had just obtained turned out to be the complete version of that nameless art. Before his rebirth, Qin Xiao had always felt something was off about the art he practiced, but he could never pinpoint the issue. Unexpectedly hatching the phoenix egg had granted him the opportunity to complete the art. Wandering through his spiritual world, Qin Xiao's consciousness seemed to split into countless avatars, each endlessly rehearsing every detail of the art. While cultivating within his spiritual realm, Qin Xiao also clearly sensed the external world. He knew the two phoenix fledglings were sucking his blood, and though his body endured the pain, he found it strangely pleasurable. As the phoenix fledglings drew his blood, they continuously fed him back pure fire, elemental energy. This energy triggered a genetic mutation in Qin Xiao's body, propelling him directly into the second stage of fire mutation. More importantly, Qin Xiao successfully cultivated a fire spirit star core. Star cores were inherently attributeless, but star warriors could imbue them with attributes through their own cultivation. Qin Xiao had first cultivated the fire spirit star core a year before his rebirth, and it had been achieved with the aid of a fire phoenix. This time, he was merely retracing a path he had once walked only earlier. The fire spirit star core did not directly grant a special ability, but it sharpened Qin Xiao's affinity for fire elements, making him more perceptive to them. Now the power of Qin Xiao's fire-based star arts and combat techniques would be amplified by 100, but the cost was a proportional increase in stellar energy consumption. This was precisely why Qin Xiao was so determined to obtain a focus star rune. Only such a rune could maximize the potential of his fire element affinity. An even more crucial function of the fire spirit star core was that it accelerated the cultivation speed of the nirvana art. The immense gains did not overwhelm Qin Xiao, but he once again immersed himself fully in cultivation. After an unknown span of time, Qin Xiao finally completed this genetic mutation and concluded his cultivation in the spiritual world. When he reopened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Bai Qi standing opposite him. The moment their gazes met, a burst of flame spontaneously ignited in the air. "What's going on?" Xiao Zhuer asked upon witnessing this. Bai Qi averted his eyes, his face barely concealing his shock. "It's nothing. He just finished a genetic mutation. His strength has surged too quickly, and he can't fully control his power yet," Bai Qi explained. When he looked at Qin Xiao again, the latter's state had stabilized considerably, and his power level was now clear, a combat power of 100 knots, at the first rank of the Star Connection realm. He broke through again. After discerning Qin Xiao's strength, Bai Qi was momentarily stunned. Bai Qi distinctly recalled that just a few days ago Xiao Zhuer had come to him marveling that Qin Xiao wasn't even a star warrior, yet was already proficient in star rune studies and alchemy. A day earlier, during the conflict with the Zhou family, Qin Xiao's strength had already reached the 5th rank of the star forging realm. In the span of just one day, his power had risen yet again, breaking directly into the Star Connection realm. This meant that Qin Xiao had undergone 2 genetic mutations in a short period, and both were undoubtedly of the highest quality. Genetic mutations were not only exceedingly difficult to trigger, but fully assimilating their benefits was also extremely challenging. This could no longer be attributed to luck. It was a testament to extraordinary talent. Bai Qi's gaze fell back upon the 2 little yellow chicks, and after a long deliberation he murmured, "Could it be that he possesses a special bloodline power?" Across the vast star domain, there were many ancient martial families that had endured for millennia. Their longevity was largely due to unique bloodline powers. In Bai Qi's view, only the awakening of a bloodline power could plausibly explain Qin Xiao's situation. With this in mind, he asked bluntly, "Which family do you come from?" Qin Xiao was still immersed in the joy and astonishment of his power surge when Bai Qi's question caught him off guard, causing him to pause. Qin Xiao was no novice in cultivation. Hearing Bai Qi's query, he immediately understood that the family referred to an ancient martial clan. If someone had asked him this before his rebirth, he would not have given it much thought. But after this experience, he himself could not rule out the possibility entirely. Yet thinking about his years as an orphan, a complex mix of emotions welled up in his heart. Do I really have a family? What happened to me before I was 6? Qin Xiao shook his head helplessly. These 2 questions had haunted him for over a decade, and he still had no answers. "I have no family. I grew up on my own," Qin Xiao said, a hint of melancholy in his voice. Before his words faded, he broke into a smile and added, "But I believe I will find my family someday. When I do, I'll tell you which family I belong to." Bai Qi nodded and replied, "Then I'll wait for your good news." Afterward, Bai Qi pointed at the 2 little yellow chicks and asked, "Now can you give me a proper explanation of these 2 chicks that cost 1 billion star diamonds?"